Chapter 219. The scourge didn't have the slightest self-awareness of being a scourge. Other people's gazes would never affect him. Those who had the courage to come up to him were definitely not afraid of death. Thus, there was no need to be polite to this kind of person. Li Hongyuan gave his lotus lantern to Jingwan. "I'll play what you wrote. You wrote everything about yourself, right?" Jingwan didn't reach out her hand. She just looked at him quietly. Li Hongyuan seemed to understand the meaning in her eyes. He nodded shamelessly. Wanwan doesn't have this prince in her heart. This prince can only let others know that you have this prince in your heart, and only this prince. Jingwan was extremely speechless. Even if this young lady fell in love with you in the future, you definitely wouldn't be the only one in my heart, let alone now. However, Jingwan had also seen his stubbornness in certain aspects. There was no use in being in a deadlock with him. It would probably only attract more people to watch. She took the lotus lantern from his hand. Why did Prince come out at this time? After asking, Jingwan realized that she had made a stupid mistake. Prince, just pretend this subject didn't ask. A certain person originally wanted to say, "Does Wanwan really want to know?" His wife was so enthusiastic that he couldn't refuse. Alas, what a pity. How could he take back what he had said? However, Wanwan's skin was thin. If she really said something that she shouldn't say in public, she should be angry. "Let's go play the lantern." Jingwan glanced at her two good friends beside her. This young lady wasn't the kind of person who would abandon her best friends for a man. Li Hongyuan just followed her gaze and glanced. The two girls who were originally a little fascinated by the man suddenly felt their scalps go numb. It was likely that all the hair on their bodies stood up. This man really wouldn't become a good person. If they were charmed by him, they would die without a burial place. One told them to stay, the other told them to scram. Speaking of which, as good sisters, they naturally thought of each other in everything. So, they squatted down and quickly scram. Jingwan glanced at the water lantern left behind by her cousin. She was really too disloyal. Why did she have to be that kind of person? So, she was indeed a scourge. It was fine if she was a scourge, but she was also a scourge. Jingwan carries two water lanterns to the riverside and steps on the stone stairs to the bottom. The water surface is only 1 finger lower than the stone stairs under her feet. She squats down and puts the water lanterns into the river. In the slight ripples of the river, the water lanterns float away slowly like the water lanterns put by others. The world of lights on the water, the world of lights under the water, and the stars on the water surface. Jingwan looks at them quietly, hoping that her family members are all well. Well, barely including the scourge beside her. Li Hongyuan stood beside Jingwan. She looked at the water lantern while he looked at her. To their left and right, there was no one more than 10 meters away from them. Even further away, there was clearly a crowd of people. For a moment, it was as if the two of them were the only ones left in the world, and the clamor around them seemed to have vanished without a trace. Sure enough, wherever she was, his heart would always be at peace. However, this peace did not last long. He lowered his head, so his vision was not wide. But even so, someone broke in. 2 steps away from Jingwan, he squatted down in what he thought was a graceful manner and placed the water lantern on the table. Then, he clasped his hands together as if he was praying sincerely. Throughout the whole process, his head was slightly lowered and the back of his neck was exposed. Under the light, she looks very white and weak, which makes people want to break her asterisk. Seeing that their master, who was originally in a good mood, is shrouded by hostility in an instant, Eunuch Mu and his guards want to jump into the river to commit suicide. But before that, they just want to kill the biggest culprit first. Are you blind or what? Can't you see that there are so many people, and no one dares to go over? Do you think others can't see your intention? A bitch is a bitch. Eunuch Mu cursed in his heart. But what should he do now? He can't really drag her away in front of Miss Luo. But the most annoying thing is, why did they let her go? There are so many people, but no one wants to stop her. What if it was an assassin who wanted to assassinate him? What the hell were they doing? What the hell were they doing? Their faces are gloomy, and their hearts are irritable. After praying, Miss Gu turned around and looked at Jingwan, revealing a gentle smile. Jingwan wants to roll her eyes. Miss, if you want to look at the person next to you, just look at him. If you want to know him or hook up with him, just go to him. You want to look at him, but can't bear to look at him. To be honest, you are really not good looking. Li Honyuan reached out and pulled Jingwan up. Let's go. He doesn't want to be ruined by irrelevant people now. Jingwan nodded. If it was Yuan, Xiao, Zhou Shuang, and the others, Jingwan would be happy to leave this man aside. But now, she would rather stay with this living king of hell. Miss Gu, who had been completely ignored, was furious and unwilling to give up. She already knew that this man was most likely Luo Jingwan's fiancé. He had a distinguished status, power, and money. He was also very good-looking. He was simply her ideal husband. Even if he was someone else's fiancé, even if she could never become his official wife, she still did not want to give up just like that. She gritted her teeth and followed. But as the saying goes, dreams are plentiful, but reality is cruel. The guards, who have been tortured by their master's horrible eyes, said that if they let her get close, it will not be as simple as being punished when they go back. Eunuch Mu grabbed Miss Gu's arm tightly. His eyes really want to eat her alive. In fact, no one who follows a master like Li Honyuan is pure. Even if Eunuch Mu has not been exposed to particularly bloody things, his bones have long been dyed black. Let go of me. Do you know who I am? Let me tell you. Eunuch Mu covered her mouth with his hand. Miss Luo has not gone far with his master. If she is alarmed, he will be in serious trouble. Throw her into the river. It's enough to keep her alive. Miss Gu widened her eyes in disbelief. Her mouth was moaning, but she couldn't break free at all. The guard next to her was not polite at all. He tore a piece of her dress and stuffed it into her mouth. She wanted to take the thing out of her mouth with her hands, but her hands were immediately broken. He grabbed her by the back of her neck and exerted force. She rolled down the stone stairs and fell into the water with a splash. She struggled in the water, but her hands were broken, so she couldn't climb up. After struggling for a long time, she found that the water was not deep, only up to her waist. However, her feet were crooked and she almost stepped on air. She was still in shock, and her mouth was still gagged. The pain in her arms was even more unbearable. Tears fell down, mixed with the water droplets rolling down from her hair, and she carefully moved inside. Just as she was about to call for help from the people on the shore, the guard came down. She retreated in fear, but the guard quickly reached out and grabbed her hair. He pushed her into the water, and after a while, he pulled her up again. After repeating this several times, Miss Gu no longer had the strength to struggle and was on the verge of death. The guard carried her up and threw her on the stone stairs. He clapped his hands and left. From beginning to end, there was not a trace of emotion on his face. The whole process was seen by many people on both sides of the river. These people included several of the Luo family's elder brothers. Some timid girls didn't dare to watch and hurriedly left. Although some were also afraid, they seemed to be very curious and stayed. Naturally, there were also those who watched in high spirits. But each of them had their own complicated emotions. Among these people, Luo Jingwa's relationship with her was the closest. But at this moment, his face was expressionless. Don't talk about sympathy or pity. His eyes were simply looking at a dead object. His younger sister didn't want a third person to come between them, so she should be the same. He naturally didn't have any good feelings towards these people who tried to get close to his future brother-in-law. Jinghua, let someone send her back. After all, she came from our family. If we let her die here, even if it was done by Jin Qinhuang's people, it will not be good for our family's reputation. Luo Jingda whispered. Luo Jinghua nodded his head indifferently. However, her entire body was drenched, and she was half dead. She couldn't ask the servants to carry her back. That way, not only would her reputation be ruined, the Luo family would also be criticized by others. If that Miss Gu was Jingwan's tail, then her niece Gu Lian was Luo Jinghua's tail. Luo Jinghua tilted his head and saw Gulian Er's pale face. Her tears were like broken beads, completely uncontrollable. Seeing Luo Jinghua looking over, she seemed to have found her backbone. Biaoga. She pitifully wanted to rub against him. Take your servant girl and send her back. Jin Qinhuang's people did it. If she dies, she will die in vain. Also, you should learn from this. If you think about something you shouldn't think about, you will probably end up the same. Luo Jinghua clearly warned. Gulian might be a weak person, but she wasn't completely unable to understand human language. Her face was pale, and she didn't dare to take a step closer. Luo Jinghua didn't care about her anymore. My younger brothers and sisters have run away. Let's go take a look. Luo Jingda and Luo Jingming nodded. Although they met every year, it was different every year. They were big men. It was enough to have their own manservants by their side. Watching them leave, Gulianer bit her lip and looked at her aunt who was motionless on the stone stairs. She also wanted to ignore her, but she couldn't. Was she already dead? She didn't dare to be sure. Xinli was very scared. She glanced at the servant girl, who was at a loss. Why don't you go down and see your daughter? Obviously, she was also scared to death, but the servant girl had to go. Trembling, she went down and reached out her trembling hand. She found that she was still breathing. It seemed that she had just fainted. She couldn't help but cry with joy. Still alive. Of course, she was still alive. Since she said to leave her with one breath, she naturally wouldn't kill her. In any case, she was still a relative of Luo Sangunyang. It wasn't good to kill her. However, this lesson was enough. If there was a next time, there wouldn't be another chance. Gu Lian called her own servant girl to help. They helped her up and let the servant girl carry her. Step by step, they walked towards the place where the carriage was parked. Seeing the situation, those who didn't know were surprised. Did she fall into the river? Those who knew sneered. Jin Qinhuang's people held her down in the river, gagged her mouth, and broke her hand. Jin Qinhuang took Luo Sangunyang to light the river lanterns. The two girls who were close to Luo Sangunyang all avoided them. She didn't even look at her own virtue. You didn't see her appearance at that time. It was simply too scary. Perhaps she thought that her beauty was unparalleled. Any man would be attracted. It's hard to say. They all say that Jin Qinhuang is walking the road of beauty and bones. That's not a joke. Jin Qinhuang was fond of beauty, but he had always been the one to choose. Those who threw themselves at him all didn't have a good ending. The bystanders looked at each other in dismay. They looked at the unconscious Miss Gu with pity, but more disdain. When the crowd had mostly dispersed, Yuan Xiaoqiao and Zhou Yingshuang reappeared by the river. They had seen the situation just now. At this moment, they looked at each other and didn't know what to say. After a moment of silence, Yuan Xiaoqiao suddenly laughed. Yingshuang, it's quiet here. Let's hurry and light the lanterns. Otherwise, there will be more people. She excitedly went to pick up a few river lanterns and called for the servant girl to help. At the place where Jingwan had placed the river lanterns, the place where Miss Gu had almost lost her life, Yuan Xiaoqiao put down the river lanterns one by one. She seemed to dislike them for moving too slowly and even used her hands to paddle the water. As for the river lantern hawkers, who had never seen such a scene before, they were almost scared silly. They could only slow down on their own. As for the people who didn't know the situation, they were puzzled when they saw that there was a lot of space. However, because Yuan Xiaoqiao and Zhou Yingshuang were there, they didn't think much of it. They bought the river lanterns and went down. Jingwan strolled around beside Li Hongyuan. She looked around and felt the rich, festive atmosphere. This was something that would never have happened in her previous life. Therefore, after so many years, Jingwan's love for the various festivals had never weakened. Moreover, the capital was very different from Qian Prefecture. The pavilion corridor built by the river had 9 bends and 18 bends. Lanterns of flowers, birds, fish, and insects were hung. Of course, there were also very square lanterns. The white paper was also painted with exquisite paintings. There were countless small games. listening to the waves of cheers and applause. It was a lively and prosperous scene that belonged to this era. "Do you want it?" Li Hongyuan's voice softly sounded in her ear. Jingwan subconsciously rubbed her ear. She turned her head to look at him, then shifted her gaze to the high platform full of lanterns. The lanterns were obtained after 3 rounds. The final prize was hung in the middle of the platform. It was a colored glass lantern. It didn't have an ordinary appearance. It was a person standing on auspicious clouds and holding a jade rabbit. Although it was only half the height of a person, it was vivid and lifelike. Because of the light inside the lantern, it didn't appear frivolous. Instead, it seemed to have the aura of an immortal. This kind of craftsmanship was amazing. It was no wonder that there were so many people around. However, it seemed that there weren't many people who made it to the second round. "Wan, if you want it, I could take it." Jingwan tilted her head. "Troublesome, don't get so close to speak." Speaking with a normal tone was already breaking the rules. What was he trying to do by lowering his voice? Take it? How does Prince plan to take it? Forcefully take it? If I forcefully take it and give it to you, won't people criticize you? If they scold Ben Wang, it doesn't matter. It was said that Jin Qin Wang had nothing good in his face. This knowledge was naturally included. However, Jingwan dared to conclude that it wasn't the case. Since he said it out loud, he would definitely be able to use conventional means to get it. If he really did that, the things that he deliberately concealed would be exposed. She shook her head. "I just think it's very pretty. I don't want it." Li Hongyuan seemed to have seen through her thoughts. "It doesn't matter." "So what if something was exposed?" "I really don't want it," Jingwan said. Her eyes turned, and then she suddenly lowered her voice. "Could it be that Prince wants me to face a beauty day and night?" There was a smile in her eyes, and there was a bit of ridicule. Li Hongyuan's face immediately darkened. Jingwan covered her mouth and laughed very happily. To be able to make her laugh so happily, Li Hongyuan's expression eased and he reached out to touch her face. When Jingwan saw this, she immediately took a step back. Tonight, even if a man and woman walked together, there wouldn't be any gossip. But if they were too intimate, it definitely wouldn't do. "Prince, let's go." Saying this, she took a few steps back with a smile on her face. Then she turned around and leisurely walked forward. When they walked far away, a person came out from behind the lampstand next to them. It was Sun Yilin. He didn't call his friends, and he wasn't with his brothers at home. There was only a manservant by his side. The manservant looked at him with some apprehension. He knew how deep his young master's feelings for Luo Sanmis were. That kind of scene just now for him was like stabbing a knife into his heart. The smile on his face was getting less and less. Many times, to be silent from morning to night, it was impossible to say that he wasn't worried. Sun Yilin knew that he might meet Jingwan tonight. He also knew that Prince Jin might be with her, but he still came. He didn't go to the 10,000 Lanterns Tower during the moon worship. He wanted to try if he had that fate with her. After all, this neighborhood wasn't small. Even if he deliberately looked for her, he might not be able to find her. Facts proved that this fate still existed. Ignoring the pain from his heart, Sun Yilin turned his gaze to the lamp. After a moment, he walked over. Sun Yilin's appearance caused even louder cheers. Everyone had great expectations for him. In fact, Sun Yilin really didn't let them down. When it came to words, he had never lost. Others worked hard, but couldn't even pass half of the first level. But he didn't stop to rest and passed 3 levels in a row. He often blurted it out without even thinking. Finally, holding the beauty lantern, he finally revealed his first smile tonight, causing many women in the boudoir to blush and their hearts to beat. In recent months, there had been no news of him. When they met again, he seemed to be even more attractive. Such a person, they didn't know what kind of woman could be worthy of him. However, Duchess Ding didn't seem to be a good mother-in-law. Sun Yilin left the high platform, gave the beauty lantern to the servant, and walked in the opposite direction from Jingwan. "Young master, will you send this lantern to the Luo family tomorrow? Keep it. Whatever my little sister needs, she has her husband." The servant silently shut up. Jingwan stepped onto the stone bridge and looked at the lake not far away. Countless water lanterns passed under the bridge, and all of them converged into the lake. It was as if the lake had merged with the stars in the sky. It was too beautiful to behold. Is this lake formed naturally? Jingwan asked curiously. No, it was dug by the great ancestor. Jingwan praised in her heart. Although the great ancestor was from a humble background, he was also very sentimental. The willows by the lake were rustling, the pavilions and the lights were waning. It could be regarded as a dating spot. Don't ask why Jingwan only thought of this instead of drinking water, because there was no shortage of water in the capital. The river was convenient for many people, but this lake was purely superfluous. Those boats, are they pleasure boats? There were more than 10 boats on the lake. The worst of them had 2 floors. At this time, they were slowly wandering on the lake. They were also brightly lit and magnificent. Li Hongyuan glanced at Jingwan. It seemed that he didn't quite understand Jingwan's meaning. Yes. Which one is the Huaiqin pleasure boat? Jingwan was very curious. Wanwan, why do you ask this? Isn't it because the courtesan of the Huaiqin pleasure boat took a fancy to my third brother? Moreover, I heard that the Huaiqin pleasure boat is yours. The girls inside must be the ones you choose to see the guests? Jingwan looked at him. It seemed that she was purely curious, but also seemed to be teasing. Li Hongyuan's expression was a bit unpredictable. Who would tell this kind of thing to the girls in the back house? I not only heard it, but also wanted to see it. It was a pity pleasure boats and the like were all forbidden areas for girls. If they dared to try, their spittle could drown you to death. After the wedding, Ben Wang will take you there. With him taking her there, she couldn't go anywhere. Jingwan was surprised. Soon after, she smiled. This man was really. It's almost time. Let's go back. Li Hongyuan nodded his head in agreement. They didn't follow the original path and chose to go on the opposite side of the river. When they returned to the front of Wandanglu, the tile tower had already been completely burned up. It was like a pile of bonfires, but it was far more beautiful than bonfires. The tiles were burning red, and there was a kind of beauty like red jade in the fire. It far exceeded their original expectations. Meeting other Wangya and Wang Fei didn't seem to be strange. Ruwei Qinwang invited Jin Qinwang to have a drink, and Li Hongyuan agreed. He turned to Jingwan and said, "Go back early and rest. Your family still has work to do tomorrow." Jingwan nodded. Rather than chatting with Ruwei Qinwang Fei, Jingwan was more willing to go back to sleep. So, without saying anything, she bid farewell to them and left under the escort of her maidservants. "Lao Lu, you're really serious now." Ruwei Qinwang smiled warmly. Li Hongyuan had always been too lazy to pay attention to this kind of probing. Li Hongming was somewhat sincere to her. She was afraid that Su Gui Fei had told him everything. The son of a ghost? The country and the throne were all fought for with blood. When Jingwan returned to the carriage, it was almost time for the appointed time. After all, several of her younger brothers and sisters were still young. They couldn't play late, so she sat in the carriage and waited. Sure enough, it didn't take long for them to appear one after another. However, Yu Yao didn't want to go home. Acting spoiled and acting shamelessly, Jingwan was also helpless. She discussed with Yu Yao's wet nurse and sent someone to report to Great Princess Royals Fu and bring her back to Luo family. Yu Yao was overjoyed. Soon after, she abandoned Jingwan and went to find 2 sisters to play, throwing them away after using them. Jingwan couldn't help but laugh and scold when she found that 2 people were missing. Where did they go? They already went back, Luo Jinghua said. Went back. Jingwan looked to the side. There was indeed 1 carriage missing, and the coachman also expressed his affirmation. Since that was the case, there was nothing to say. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653301. HTML chapter error. Click here to report registration is exempted. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bikin.com, Biku mobile reading website, mbikin.com. Chapter 220. However, not long after Jingwan and the rest returned to the Luo family, they heard that the Gu family's short-sighted girl was about to die. Jingwan was extremely shocked. She was still fine before. How long had it been? And she was about to die. Jingwan didn't doubt it. This was the Luo family. The doctor was the Luo family's official doctor. How could the Gu family feign illness and feign death under her nose? Furthermore, would her own family lie to her about this kind of thing? Therefore, it was definitely true. That aunt and niece pair came back early. It was very likely that something happened after she left. Jingwan pondered for a moment. That Miss Gu had just entered the capital. The people outside didn't have any enmity with her, so they wouldn't put her in a sack and beat her up. She also wouldn't have been raped and lost her chastity. Otherwise, when third brother said that she had already returned, he wouldn't have been so indifferent. The most likely thing was that she fell into the river. At this time, catching a cold could cause death. Drowning could cause a lung infection, causing a high fever. Jingwan decided to go and take a look. It wasn't that she was concerned about the other party, but purely to know what happened. Just as she walked out of the courtyard, she ran into Luo Jinghua. Apparently, their destination was the same. Third brother, you should know what happened, right? Luo Jinghua frowned and hesitated for a moment. In the end, he still told her what happened. Jingwan's footsteps paused. All right, she really did fall into the water. But it wasn't an accident, it was man-made, and it was under the eyes of everyone. The only people who could do this kind of thing were the living Hell King and his subordinates. If it was other people, the emperor would have done it secretly. In a feudal society, under the imperial power, there were no human rights. Jingwan rubbed her slightly swollen temples. Luo Jinghua saw her like this and knew that she was kind-hearted. He was worried that she would be estranged from Jin Qinhuang. Little sister, Jin Qinhuang has already given you face, otherwise it could have been a corpse at that time. I know, I'm just worried that he has killed too many people and damaged his virtue. It's not good. The members of the Gu family were a little annoying, but their crimes did not warrant death. Initially, he only wanted to teach that Lady Gu a lesson, not take her life. However, this lesson was a little too harsh. Now that things had turned out like this, the matter was already irreversible. Could Jingwan still have a conflict with Jin Qinhuang because of her? Jingwan was very clear about who was close and who was distant. She was not a saint. Even if Li Hongyuan killed an unrelated person in front of her, she would not blame him. When Jingwan and Madame Gu arrived, other than Luo Rongyan, Madame Zhang, and the Gu family, Madame Luo and Madame Wang were also there. Madame Wang was in charge of the household affairs and had to be involved in all matters of the family. Madame Luo, as the person with the highest authority in the inner residence, should also come and take a look. However, at this time, they were all very silent. The food doctor prescribed medicine, inserted needles, and fed the medicine to Lady Gu. Whether she could endure or not, it would depend on her own luck. Madame Gu and Madame Zhang hugged Gu Lian and kept crying. Jingwan's uncle, his eyes were red, and he looked like he was on the verge of exploding in anger. Although he did not say anything, but looking at his appearance, it was likely that he wanted to put this account on the Luo family. Old Madame is not saying anything. Could it be that this matter did not happen? My good sister became like this after going out for a trip. Even the minister's residence is not so overbearing and unreasonable. If you don't give this Gu an explanation, even if I have to sacrifice my life, I will not let this matter rest. What kind of person was Madame Luo? How could she not see that this man's eyes were full of calculation? They came to the capital this time to borrow the Luo family's power, whether it was to seek an official position or to achieve other goals. However, in these few days, Luo Shangshu did not have any intention of paying attention to him at all. It was impossible for him not to be anxious. Now that such a thing had happened, He must be very happy. With such a handle, he would naturally try his best to gain benefits. Madame Luo was calm and collected. Even if you want an explanation, this old one needs to know what happened. If it was your sister who did something, this old one will definitely pursue the matter of you implicating the Luo family. Our Luo family is upright and upright. We will never say no to what we should take responsibility for. However, if it is something that we should not take responsibility for, no one can blackmail us. Only then did Uncle Gu realize that his attitude was too extreme. He only spoke viciously, but if he really went against the Luo family, it would undoubtedly be like striking a rock with an egg, and he would end up digging his own grave. Old madam, I was also anxious for a moment. Please forgive me. After all, father and mother handed my sister over to me. Now that things have turned out like this, how can I explain it to them? As he spoke, he actually choked up. Jingwan and her sister looked at each other outside the door. This acting was also very good. It was no wonder that they could raise a girl like Gu Lianer who would cry whenever she wanted. Her parents were both outstanding. With the excellent genes of both of them, she was definitely better than her parents. However, they had been back for a long time. Could it be that Gu Lianer had not clearly explained what had happened? Madame Luo was indifferent. What kind of situation had she not seen before? How could she be deceived by such a small trick? Since your daughter and the servant girl were shocked and incoherent, and the other children of your family did not know anything, there might be someone among the children of a Luo family who knows. I believe that they would not be like your daughter and the others, who could not take the slightest shock. Call them over now and ask them. Even if they don't know anything, there are so many people at the Lantern Festival. We will definitely find out who is right and who is wrong. She then sent someone to call someone over. Since she had said this, Uncle Gu could not say anything more. He looked at his little sister lying on the bed with an unfathomable expression. Before the mother beside Madame Luo reached the door, the brother and sister outside the door asked the servant girl to open the door curtain and entered one after another. Grandmother, Madame Luo looked over and nodded. You came at the right time. Do you know what happened? The two first paid their respects. Then Luo Jinghua recounted what happened. Grandmother, who in the entire capital doesn't know what kind of temper Jin Qinhuang has? She shamelessly rushed forward, purely seeking her own death. If it wasn't for little sister, she would probably have fished up the corpse in the river. Moreover, she clearly knew that he was little sister's fiancé, yet she still acted like this. It's really disgusting. Don't even mention Jin Qinhuang's people. I also want to slap her into the river. Luo Jinghua said as he glanced at the unconscious little sister Gu, his eyes cold. Madame Luo's expression also became cold. Is it all true? Biao Mei was also at the side at that time. Even if she couldn't explain it clearly, she wouldn't have been unable to nod or shake her head. Uncle Gu's face was green and white. He had provoked a Wangya. Sure enough, even if he died, he would have died in vain. He glared at Gu Lianer. Is what your Biaoga said true? What are you crying for? Quickly say it. Gu Lianer was startled and cried even more pitifully. She seemed to nod with difficulty. Madame Luo stood up. Then there's nothing to say about this matter. According to seniority, your little sister is Wan's elder. This old one has never seen such a shameless thing in my life. This niece wants to be my grandson's concubine. She really has a family history. Eldest daughter-in-law, arrange for someone to send her to the manor overnight. Tomorrow is your grandson's 1-month birthday. If she dies at home, wouldn't it be bad luck? Whether she lives or dies, it all depends on her luck. Your family, move out of the Luo family within 3 days. Otherwise, don't blame this old one for mercilessly sweeping you out of the house. Zhangshi, you better draw a clear line between you and them. Otherwise, take the letter of divorce and get out of the Luo family. Madame Luo finished speaking and directly left. It could be seen that she was really angry. Wangshi and Jingwan's siblings all left with Madame Luo. Zhangshi sat there in a daze, not knowing how to react. Luo Rongyan pulled her. Let's go. What are you still doing here? Zhang Shi seemed to have found her backbone and tightly grasped his hand. "Husband, we'll talk about it when we get back." He didn't want to stay in this place. He didn't care about this family. Uncle Gu wanted to keep them, but no one paid any attention to him. After Madame Zhang got married, Luo Rongyan was the center of her life. Her children occupied the edges and corners of her life. There was still a thread that connected her maternal family. If she maintained a good relationship with everyone, then naturally there would be peace. However, if someone threatened her marriage, then not to mention her married sister, even her parents, she would cut ties with them. Uncle Gu clenched his fists and glared at the mother and daughter, who were still crying. Still crying? Look, this is all your fault. Eating and living in the Luo family's house was naturally much better than before. Luo Shangshu didn't say anything, and they didn't want to look for a house outside. However, they had no choice now. After all, if they were really kicked out, it would be too embarrassing. Zhang Shi didn't expect things to turn out like this. She only thought that her sister was easy to manipulate. If she could be like a fish in water in the Luo family with that kind of personality, then her mother-in-law must be soft. Who knew that her prediction was completely wrong? How can you blame me? Isn't it all your sister's fault? She's trying to climb up the social ladder. How can she covet a noble? I told you not to take her with us. Now that we've completely offended the Luo family, are you satisfied? Zhang Shi was a little flower outside, but not in her own home. Zhang Shi's face was livid. Indeed, his daughter was wrong, but more importantly, his sister had completely angered Madame Luo. They heard the most in the Luo family about how much Madame Luo loved her third granddaughter. Therefore, when Zhang Shi sent people to take Gu Xiaomei away, their family couldn't stop them. They couldn't wait to help get her away. After Zhang Shi heard it, Zhang Shi didn't comment. She had seen many such selfish people. When they were useful, they were like blood-sucking bugs. When there was a problem, they would push the blame to others and couldn't wait to kick them to death. Zhang Shi didn't have any opinions about Zhang Shi. Zhang Shi had long known about her. Zhang Shi sent Gu Xiaomei away just like that, without causing any waves. As for whether she could see her again, it depended on whether she could endure it or not. The next day, Jingwan and the others came out of the main courtyard to pay their respects and went directly to the first branch. Yu Yao, who refused to go home last night, also followed. Speaking of which, she was the most compatible with the legitimate daughter of the fourth branch. She didn't know if it was because this Miss Luo also followed Jingwan like a little tail when she was in Qian Prefecture and was deeply influenced by Jingwan. Little Zhang Shi had finished her confinement and was neat and tidy. She didn't look much plump. After all, when she was pregnant, she didn't look good, but she was in good spirits. When she saw Jingwan and the others, she smiled very happily. Jingwan and the others looked at the child. They had seen him when they just came back. It had only been a few days, but they felt that he seemed to have grown a little. Children really grew older. Because he was a little thin and weak when he was born, they took very good care of him. Now he looked white and chubby. His eyes were big and round and especially bright. Jingwan guessed that there shouldn't be any problems with this child. Probably because she was pregnant. Sun Yijia liked the child very much now. She couldn't wait to take this little baby back and raise him. Little Zhang Shi laughed. Sister-in-law, don't be envious. Wait a few more months until the one in your belly comes out. After a long time, you will be annoyed. We'll talk about it when the time comes. For now, let me cherish him. They chatted and laughed around the little baby, and guests came one after another. The first guests who came were naturally the members of the Wang family. They were Madame Wang's biological mother, several sisters-in-law, younger sisters-in-law, and 2 younger niece-in-law. This branch of the Wang family was also flourishing. Because he was the eldest grandson of the eldest branch, and the first one in the 4th generation, he was naturally very important. So the ceremony was very grand. The officials in the imperial court couldn't come, but their family members also came. For those who were not suitable to visit, such as the princes. As for Luo Jinggua's wedding, because Li Hanyuan took the lead, others followed. This time, Li Hanyuan only sent gifts. Naturally, it was not appropriate for his wife to visit, but he sent a lot of congratulatory gifts. Great Elder Princess also sent someone to send a lot of congratulatory gifts. Yu Yao became the representative of Great Elder Princess's mansion. She ran around the Luo family happily. Those who saw her also had some thoughts in their minds. However, she was just a child. Perhaps it only represented that the two families had a nominal relationship, but they didn't have any deeper contact. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653303. HTML. Please click here to report. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bicken.com Mobile Edition website, mbicken.com. Chapter 221. As for the Grand Secretary, he didn't show up for most of the time at the temporary imperial residence. Everyone thought that he really couldn't make it. When he returned to the capital, if he didn't hand in a memorial and resign, then Lu Qingdi would directly remove him from his position. Who would have thought that he didn't stay quiet after returning to the capital, but gradually began to show up? His spirit was getting better day by day, as if the capital's environment was more suitable for him. It was nourishing. Now, he could show off his power in the cabinet again. Lu Qingdi didn't seem to have the intention of firing him. Speaking of which, Ruan Ruizong had always been in the emperor's party and only listened to the emperor's orders. For Lu Qingdi, he was loyal and capable. There was no one more convenient to use than him. When Ruan Ruizong was in the temporary imperial residence, he didn't show up and also cut off contact with Lu Qingdi. Of course not. From time to time, he would write memorials to talk about the past and talk about the relationship between the emperor and his minister. Then, he would give appropriate suggestions about the flood. While not forgetting their relationship, he also let Lu Qingdi know his ability. He also appropriately expressed that he was recuperating now in order to be more loyal to the emperor. Lu Qingdi was actually very clear about his physical condition. After all, it was the imperial physician who took Ruan Ruizhong's pulse. As for those memorials, why didn't the other princes know about it? Lu Qingdi was not a puppet emperor and naturally had his own channels and means. Otherwise, if he let his sons know everything clearly, he wouldn't be able to survive. After learning about Ruan Ruizhong's physical condition, Lu Qingdi didn't intend to dismiss him. Even if he wanted to deceive himself and tell himself that his sons were harmonious, he knew very well that they were suppressing each other on the surface because of political differences. Not to mention that there must be an undercurrent or even a bloody storm in the place where he couldn't see. In such a situation, changing the Grand Secretary of the Cabinet would definitely be a fierce battle. The person who sat on the throne, in the end, might not be to his liking. In this case, why bother to change? Anyway, he didn't take the matter of the Ruan family seriously, and no one took it seriously. Originally, the source of everything was Ruan Fangfei. She was still a victim and didn't cause any big trouble. Therefore, it was really not that easy to put a label on Ruan Ruizong. Lu Qingdi did not want to replace him, and Ruan Ruizong himself was also very cautious. Even if they could not find anything that could be used against him, how could the others take him down? At this time, Prince Rue was probably the only one with a burning mouth. The others might only feel regret in their hearts. The Grand Secretary was still firmly held in Ruan Ruizhong's hand, not spitting it out. However, Prince Rue was different. His mother had thoroughly offended Ruan Ruizong. He originally thought that this old thing wouldn't be able to climb back up, but who knew? He was the Grand Secretary of the Imperial Cabinet. All the memorials to major events in the world had to go through him. Even though there were still 3 cabinet elders in the Imperial Cabinet, he could still influence many things without batting an eyelid. He didn't need to side with anyone. He only needed to slightly target Prince Rue in certain areas to make him suffer a great loss. No one would even notice that something was wrong. Prince Rui knew this very well, so how could he not be anxious? After imperial concubine Su learned this matter, she could only say miscalculation. Other than that, she couldn't do anything else, let alone say a word in front of Lu Qingdi. Imperial concubine Su was favored, but she was far from being able to participate in politics. Ruan Ruiz Hong knew how he had offended Luo Peishan. Naturally, he would find an opportunity to apologize. However, this kind of thing was naturally not easy to say. However, these old foxes in the officialdom could twist their words 78 times in their stomachs. Things that they already knew. If they were mentioned in a vague way, they would know everything. Then they would have a few meaningful words. Well, they were probably all working for the same person. Well, since your family's matter has been dealt with and you have been kept in the dark for so many years, I will be magnanimous and not bicker with you. During the banquet, Luo Shangshu's great-grandson was carried out for everyone to see. He received a lot of praise. He was so small and didn't know anything yet. He was smart and had the appearance of great talent. In the future, he would definitely become a pillar of the country, and so on. Everyone knew that this was flattery. Under normal circumstances, no one would pay attention to it. But Luo Peishan was in a good mood as a great-grandfather, so he naturally happily accepted it all. When the child was brought back, he brought back a lot of good things. It should be known that he had already received a lot of good things from the female guests before. After this little guy's 1-month birthday banquet, it was time to prepare for Jingwan's coming-of-age ceremony. On the 6th day of September, there were still 10 or 20 days to go. However, the big families would not complain about having too much time to prepare these things. They would only feel that it was not enough. If it were the royal family, it would be more cumbersome, especially when it was related to the dignity of the emperor. For example, the birthday banquet and so on, it would take at least 3 months to prepare in advance. Invitations were sent to many high officials and noble families in the capital. Although there were so many officials in the capital that if a plaque fell down, 2 of the 3 people who were hit by it might be officials, there were not many families who were qualified to be first-grade officials. Those who were below 3rd grade probably could only be relatives. Jingwan's status and her relationship with Great Elder Princess and Prince Jin were obvious. Her coming-of-age ceremony was at least several times more grand than the 1-month birthday banquet of the eldest grandson of the first branch of the Luo family. Because Great Elder Princess was present, the concubines of other princes and princesses would naturally be present, not to mention the madams and old madams of dukes' mansions and marquis mansions. As far as the current Luo family was concerned, perhaps only Luo Peishan's birthday banquet could be compared with this. As expected, when they learned that Jingwan's coming-of-age ceremony was about to be held, many people inquired about the candidate for the position. Although they knew that there might not be anyone who would accept the position in the end, they still couldn't help but think about it. Apart from other things, Great Elder Princess would be the guest of honor. If she praised the candidate, the status of their daughter would immediately rise a lot. Yes, no one had different ideas about the candidate of the guest of honor. The Luo family didn't hang on to this matter. They directly announced to the public that they had found a candidate and had obtained the other party's consent. Therefore, since those who had the idea didn't get the news, it had nothing to do with them. Although they didn't directly say who the candidate was, they still knew it after inquiring about it. After all, it was not a secret. However, this final result made many people feel a little strange. They had a biological sister. Even if she was too young and unsuitable, there was one who was only a year younger than her. Even worse, there were still cousins. In the end, she chose an outsider. What should they say? Of course, as an outsider, they would only grumble in their hearts and wouldn't say anything. But as a relative, they would definitely be unhappy. As a relative, they would support an outsider instead of a relative. They had never seen such a heartless and unscrupulous person. Of course, they wouldn't say such harsh words out loud, but that was what they meant. They even hoped that Jingwan would be replaced. However, these people were all stopped by Madame Luo. With her there, no one dared to act rashly. This matter didn't reach Jingwan's ears. However, even if she knew, Jingwan wouldn't change her expression. She was an emotional and cold-blooded animal. So what? The Zhou family was quite happy. After all, their daughter generally didn't have a chance to show her face in front of great elder princess in her life. Because she was already engaged, they didn't care whether she could be favored by those noble ladies or not. However, Zhou Yingshuang's uncles and even her father felt a little regretful that she was engaged too early. If they had known that today would happen, they should have broken off the engagement with the Chancellor of the Imperial College now. When Zhou Yingshuang learned about it, she burst into tears. At that time, when she was blind, the other party still agreed to this marriage. Now, she just wanted to show her face, and they wanted to break off the engagement? Did she think she was noble, just because she showed her face? She was so snobbish and heartless. How could she still want to find another man? She might as well not get married and be a sister-in-law for the rest of her life. Zhou Yingshuang was so angry that she almost didn't want to be the assistant. Fortunately, her mother stopped her. If you really did that, wouldn't you be wasting Miss Luo's and Miss Yuan's good intentions? Don't bother with them. Your grandmother is still above. If they dare to say such things, your grandmother will fly and break their legs. Time went by in a busy way. Soon, it was the 3rd day of September. After writing their resignation on a piece of paper, Luo Rongyan and Madame Zhang went to Great Elder Princess's mansion in person. They first greeted her verbally and then submitted their resignation. 2 days later, the couple went to Great Elder Princess's mansion again. Great Elder Princess gave them a reply. On the 6th day of September, the Luo family opened the door to welcome the guests. Although most of the guests were female, they were all noble, so Madame Luo had to cheer up to welcome them. When Li Honyuan came in person, it seemed that there was nothing strange. As for the other brothers, it was even less strange. However, these noble masters found that there seemed to be servants of the Luo family serving them. Others didn't feel anything, but Prince Rue felt a little guilty. After all, he had once seduced a girl in the Luo family. Now there was no suitable girl for him to seduce, but he was guarded against as if he was a thief. Li Honyuan glanced at him. He was the one who added fuel to the fire about Luo Jingying. Today was his sweetheart's big day. If anyone dared to make trouble, he would be the first to kill him. As the star of today's ceremony, Jingwan was preparing for the East Room. At this time, she had finished bathing, changed her clothes, and sat down to wait. Beside her, there were not only the host and assistant, but also the people who were close to her. Seeing that it was almost time, Great Elder Princess left. Outside, as the host, Luo Rongyan and Madame Zhang stood on the steps to the east and waited. 3 assistants, selected from their relatives, stood on the west with trays. At this moment, the music sounded. The graceful and noble Great Elder Princess walked in unhurriedly from the outside. Luo Rongyan and Madame Zhang hurried to greet her. They bowed to each other and respectfully asked Great Elder Princess to sit in the host seat. Then, many guests also sat in the audience seats. In the end, Luo Rongyan and Madame Zhang sat in the host seat. When everything was ready, Luo Rongyan stood up and made a simple speech, announcing the official start of Jingwan's adulthood ceremony. Zhou Yingshuang came out first. She washed her hands and stood beside several assistants. Then Jingwan, dressed in a white robe, walked out unhurriedly. The white robe was a boy's robe. The style was simple, and the color was monochromatic. Even so, it couldn't cover up Jingwan's style. Some people said that the simpler the clothes, the better the temperament and self-restraint of a person. Undoubtedly, this was the case on Jingwan. Digression. At the end of the month, the monthly tickets and evaluation tickets were cleared. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653304. HTML. Click here to report an error. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bicken. Com Bicken. Com Mobile Edition website. Bicken. Com. Chapter 222. It was said that the simpler the clothes, the more it reflected a person's temperament and self-restraint. Jingwan was undoubtedly so. Jingwan had two completely different experiences and cultural accumulations of two completely different lives. Because of her previous life, she had foresight and a magnanimity that ordinary girls could not match. Also because of the hardships and tribulations in her previous life, she was tenacious and unyielding. In this life, her ancient upbringing and the warmth of her family made her more reserved and gentle. All these things were mixed in her, but they did not contradict each other. She was like the highest quality jade that had been carefully carved and polished, blooming with a brilliant radiance. Jingwan stood in the center of the field with a calm face. She faced the south and bowed to the many guests who were watching the ceremony. She turned to the west and knelt on the mat that had been placed in advance. Zhou Yingshuang came forward to comb her hair and then put the comb on Jingwan's left side. Perhaps it was because there were too many people and guests, but Zhou Yingshuang seemed to be a little nervous. Jingwan felt that her hands were trembling a little, but fortunately, she was able to control herself. If she made a fool of herself, even if no one said anything, she would blame herself and be too ashamed to show her face. Jingwan got up, turned around, and knelt on the ground facing the east. She naturally put her hands on her thighs, with her elbows facing out and her fingertips facing in. Great Elder Princess got up, followed by Luo Rongyan and Madame Zhang. Great Elder Princess washed her hands and dried them on the steps. Then they returned to their seats and sat down peacefully. Then the ceremony began. One of the secretaries came forward with a tray. On the tray, there was a plain dress with a matching handkerchief and hairpin. At the same time, Great Elder Princess walked to Jingwan, opened and closed her mouth, and recited a congratulatory speech. On an auspicious day in this month, I'll add a dress. Give up your youthful aspirations and follow your lead. May you live a long and prosperous life. Then she leaned slightly and combed Jingwan's hair because of her status. Great Elder Princess did not kneel down to add to Jingwan's hairpin ceremony. When Great Elder Princess took the hairpin, she paused slightly, which was rare for her. When a noble girl of high status reached the marriageable age, the concubines in the palace would usually give her a lot of things. The hairpin, and hairpin were basically given by the Empress, and Jingwan was no exception. However, Great Elder Princess knew that the gifts given by the Empress were not good. After all, her daughter also received a gift at the marriageable age. When she took the hairpin, she concluded that it was not given by the Empress. There was no reason for her daughter to be worse than Jingwan's. The Luo family was not frivolous, neither was her adopted daughter. No one would think that the Empress's gifts were not good and dared to switch the gifts given by the Empress. Great Elder Princess acted as if she hadn't noticed anything, but her goddaughter probably didn't know anything. After that, she turned around and returned to her original spot. Zhou Yingshuang stepped forward and straightened Jingwan's hairpin symbolically. Jingwan stood up, bowed to Great Elder Princess, and then turned back to the East Room. Zhou Yingshuang took the tray from the minister and followed Jingwan to the East Room. There were only Nanny Gong and Jingwan's two maids here, so there were no outsiders. Jingwan shook Zhou Yingshuang's hand with a smile. Her palm was indeed a little sweaty. She opened her mouth slightly and said, "Well done." Zhou Yingshuang breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. Several people helped her to change into a plain dress. The pure and beautiful dress symbolized the innocence of a girl. When it was taken off, it seemed to fade away. The dress was similar to an undergarment. There were no decorations on the edge of the dress, and the belt was also made of cloth. However, whether it was a plain dress or a plain dress, it looked very simple, and it was only worn during the ceremony. No matter the material or the workmanship, it was the best. Jingwan came out in a plain dress, half opened her arms, and showed it to the guests. After a while, Jingwan knelt down in front of Luo Rongyan and Madame Zhang, and bowed to them to thank them for raising her. However, Jingwan's bow made them feel ashamed. Madame Zhang couldn't stop crying. When she found it, she hurriedly wiped it away. Those who didn't know would only think that she was crying for joy because her child had grown up. Looking at Jingwan's peaceful face, Luo Rongyan couldn't guess what kind of mood she was in now. A few days ago, Madame Luo almost deprived them of the qualification to be the host of Jingwan's adulthood ceremony. They knelt down and begged for it. Both parents were present. If they didn't attend as hosts, what would others think? There would be a lot of speculations and rumors. Not only would the Luo family's reputation be damaged, but also Jingwan would be implicated. Madame Luo's harsh words made them feel ashamed and once again made them deeply realize how much of a failure they were as parents. When they thought of how many times their children had been disappointed behind their backs, their hearts ached to the extreme. But now was not the time to think too much. They hurriedly asked her to get up. Jingwan knelt down on the mat again to the east, and the second ceremony was carried out. Great Elder Princess did the same thing as before. Two servants came forward with a dress, a plain dress, and a hairpin. Great Elder Princess stood in front of Jingwan and recited a congratulatory speech. On the auspicious moon, you will wear it. I respect you for your majesty and prudence. May live for 10,000 years and enjoy whose blessings forever. After Zhou Shuang took off the hairpin on her head, Great Elder Princess took out an exquisite and expensive hairpin and Jingwan's hairpin and put it back on her head. Zhou Shuang adjusted Jingwan's hairpin. After Jingwan stood up and bowed to Great Elder Princess again, she took over Chuju's deep robe from Yusi and entered the East Room with Jingwan to change her clothes. The light and elegant long skirt symbolized the innocence of a young girl, while the Chuju deep gown showed the bright beauty of a young girl in her prime. After they came out, they also showed off their clothes to everyone. Then, they faced the guests and knelt down. This was the second kowtow to show their respect to their teachers and seniors. No matter from which point of view, Great Elder Princess accepted her bow and stood up with a smile. Then, the third edition was carried out. There were 3 officers carrying large sleeves, long dresses, ceremonial robes, and hairpins. Great Elder Princess stood in front of Jingwan and recited the greeting 3 times, in the name of the year, in the name of the month, in the name of the salty jars. Since the brothers are here, they have become Jud. Since the yellow river is boundless, you shall be blessed by heaven. Zhou Shuang took off the previous hairpin. Great Elder Princess and Jingwan put on the hairpins. After 3 editions, she changed her clothes 3 times, which showed the gorgeous process of Jingwan's transformation. Jingwan, who stood in front of everyone, was wearing a long dress with large sleeves, long dresses, and ceremonial robes. She looked graceful and elegant. It seemed that no one was more suitable for this dress than her. Many of the guests were whispering. No matter in their expressions or words, they were all full of admiration for Jingwan. Then they looked at Prince Jin as if they were thinking about something. It seemed that it was a pity to marry such a living king of hell. Li Hongyuan looked at Jingwan with a deep look. No matter how many people were around now, he only had eyes for her. It was not that he had never seen Jingwan dressed up, but it seemed that no one had ever seen her so seductive. Every word and action of hers seemed to hit his heart directly, which was itchy, numb, and a little indescribable pain. Perhaps it was because it meant that she was an adult. To put it bluntly, Li Hongyuan was a vicious wolf who had been waiting by the side for a long time. He always wanted to take Jingwan back to his nest. Now he had all the land, people, and he only needed the right time. He had waited for so many years, and in the process, he was also impatient. There were only a few months left, but his impatience seemed to have reached an unprecedented peak at this moment. Li Hongyuan withdrew his gaze from Jingwan and lowered his head, trying his best to suppress the impulse to take Jingwan away under everyone's watchful eyes. Obsessions, demonic barriers. Once obtained, they could probably be eliminated. Li Hongyuan felt that this kind of thing probably would not happen to him. Once he got close to her, he wanted to get closer to her by another zhang. In the past he could scheme for her to be engaged to someone else, and even worked in the dark. Now he wanted to flay the skin and pull out the tendons of anyone who dared to think of Jingwan. Prince Rui also withdrew his gaze from Jingwan. He did not know how many times he lamented that it was a pity in his heart. He inadvertently glanced at Li Hongyuan sitting next to him. "Sixth brother, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" Prince Rui's words seemed to have pulled him out of a bad situation, and he suddenly turned his head. At that moment, Prince Rui only felt that he was being stared at by the most ferocious beast. It was malicious and ruthless, with its bloody mouth wide open, as if it could pounce and tear you to pieces at any time. His heart rapidly contracted, and his body tilted to one side, almost flipping over his seat. Prince Rui's expression was abnormally ugly. Although he did not flip over his seat, it was already very rude and humiliating. His status was noble, and he was sitting in the first row. Many people saw it. At that time, he did not even dare to look at the other people's expressions. He tried his best to maintain his composure. Fortunately, this was not difficult for him. He did not want to look at Li Hongyuan again. In fact, he did not dare to admit his fear. What else could he do if he did not admit it? In fact, Li Hongming instinctively wanted to run away. It was not that he had great willpower to restrain himself, but it was purely because his legs were weak and he could not stand up. From the time he was born until now, he had never been so embarrassed. Even if others did not know, he was very angry in his heart. His attitude towards Li Hongyuan had already changed, but at this moment, he hated him even more than before. Li Hongyuan glanced at his legs. They were actually trembling in fear. TSK, that was all he could do. Li Hongyuan smiled for no reason, but it looked very evil. Anyone who saw it would feel their scalp tingle. This living king of hell could really make people's hearts tremble in fear. Jingwan pursed her lips. Her heart was also a little irregular right now. This man was simply like that poppy. You knew it was fatal, but you would still be bewitched by him. Especially when he deliberately seduced you. How many people could resist? And if one really got addicted to it, it would probably be really hard to quit. Jingwan did not know that to Li Hongyuan, she was the heart-linking voodoo. Only when she was safe would he be safe. He never wanted to abandon her. He only wanted to place her at the top of his heart and protect her in the palm of his hand. However, he did not want to lock her up so that no one could see her or think about her. As long as she was within his reach, he was willing to give her everything she wanted. He wouldn't imprison her, but he would destroy everyone who coveted her. Disregarding everything else, just this person beside him, his so-called third brother, Li Hongyuan used to be on the same level as his third imperial brother and had the same thoughts as him. A woman who only had looks, no matter how beautiful she was just a plaything. Even if he cared for her a little deep down, he thought that she was not presentable and would only embarrass him if he brought her out. As for Jingwan, she had a good family background and was the best of the best. She was the person who could give them face the most. Naturally, she was the one they wanted the most. Now this person was his eyeball, his heart, and his flesh. He couldn't tolerate having thoughts that he shouldn't have because he admired her. If he had evil thoughts because of selfish interests instead of her own heart, he deserved to die. Li Hongyuan's smile became more and more bewitching. Jingwan withdrew her gaze and thought, this scourge. The three officials removed the furnishings for the coming-of-age ceremony and set up a wine banquet on the west steps. Great Elder Princess motioned Jingwan to take a seat. Jingwan stood on the west side of the table, facing the south. When Zhou Yingshuang served the wine, Jingwan turned to face the north. Great Elder Princess took the wine from Zhou Yingshuang's hand, walked to Jingwan, and then recited a toast. The sweet wine is thick, and I recommend it to your fragrance. Worship the place where you are sacrificed to determine your good fortune. Don't forget the birthday examination in the sky-bearing empire. Jingwan bowed to Great Elder Princess and took the wine. Great Elder Princess saluted back. Then, Jingwan sat down on her knees and sprinkled some wine on the ground as a libation. She held the wine cup with both hands and touched her lips symbolically. Even so, she still tasted something. It was sweet, a bit like ordinary sweet wine. However, the Luo family was rich, so the material used to make the wine was certainly not ordinary rice. Jingwan put the wine cup on the table. Zhou Shuang served a small bowl of crystal clear rice. Jingwan took a small bite, put it down, and saluted to Great Elder Princess. After Great Elder Princess saluted back, Jingwan got up and left the banquet. Jingwan walked to Luo Rongyan and Madame Zhang, knelt down, and listened to their teachings. Luo Rongyan had mixed feelings. He had prepared a speech, but at this time, he couldn't say a word. After a while, Luo Rongyan said, "I hope you live a peaceful and prosperous life." Madame Zhang sobbed softly and didn't say a word. This kind of situation was not unheard of, so it would not be criticized by others. But was Luo Rongyan's teaching? In the eyes of others, it was his love for his daughter. Jingwan also had mixed feelings. They were not qualified parents, but they were not bad parents. At least, the father now was much better than the father in the previous life. She didn't know whether it was because he was too disappointed in the previous life, so he didn't have extravagant hopes. Or he had expectations when he was young, but he decisively gave up when he found that they were not qualified parents. She couldn't remember. In fact, Jingwan was very clear that today's result was not caused by her parents alone. She didn't manage it well was also one of the factors. In the end, the influence of the previous life was too deep. Because she and her grandmother depended on each other, she taught her too many things. In this life, when she faced her grandmother, who was similar to her grandmother, she subconsciously got close to her and was willing to build a good relationship with her. Her father, on the other hand, had one wife and many concubines, which ruined her impression of him. Perhaps she even secretly hated him. If she had treated them with the same attitude as her grandmother, unless these two people didn't like her from the bottom of their hearts, they wouldn't be like this today. Even so, Jingwan didn't regret it. She had another life's memory. Weren't those children who were born white paper because of their parents' sacrifice? So, she wasn't wrong at all, right? Yes, it was like this. This feeling of completely blaming someone else for his mistakes was quite satisfying. Jingwan smiled gently at them. It was good to maintain this situation. Although Luo Rongyan's teachings were not quite the same, Jingwan still followed the script. Although this son is not smart, I dare not only accept it. Then she bowed to them. Jingwan stood up and walked to the center of the hall. She bowed to the main guests, the musicians, and the performers. Everyone nodded in return. Luo Rongyan and Madame Zhang stood up and walked to Jingwan's side. My daughter's hairpin ceremony is now complete. This one thanks everyone for their hospitality. The three of them bowed to the audience again. The entire agenda was finished. The other masters of the Luo family came out to greet the guests. The male guests were led to the front courtyard, and the female guests were led to the back courtyard. It was still early to leave the banquet, so now was the time to chat and build relationships. For the princes, who needed a lot of help, they especially couldn't let go of this opportunity. Not only did they have to rope them in, but they also had to prevent others from expressing their goodwill. It was really exhausting. Jingwan held son Yijia's hand. Sister-in-law, you've worked hard. Are you tired? I'm fine. Son Yijia volunteered to be a musician. She was already 5 months pregnant. Originally, the family didn't agree, but son Yijia felt that she was in good condition. Except for a little morning sickness in the first 3 months, she had been very good. If it wasn't for this belly, no one would think that she was pregnant. The hairpin ceremony wouldn't take long, so there shouldn't be any problems. In the end, they consulted the Fu doctor, who said that there wouldn't be any problems, so everyone agreed. Speaking of which, in the Luo family, there was probably no one who was better at playing the zither than son Yijia. Son Yijia also valued this child, so no one suspected that she was trying to be brave. They went to the begonia house together. Since the hairpin ceremony was over, Jingwan couldn't keep wearing this dress, especially on her head. It wouldn't make sense if she only wore a hairpin. Even if today was her big day, she wouldn't wear this dress on a normal day. At this time, Zhou Shuang no longer had any qualms about telling everyone that she was nervous and worried that she would make a mistake. Yuan Xiaoqiao listened and patted her chest. Thank goodness you went. If it were me, I would have been embarrassed. Jingwan laughed. It's not as exaggerated as you make it sound. Why not? You and Ija might not feel anything, but I used to feel the same way as Ying Shuang. Yuan Xiaoqiao retorted. Jingwan and Sunny Jia looked at each other. It seemed to be true. Jingwan was trained by her scumbag father since she was a child, and Sunny Jia grew up in the palace. She had been hugged by the emperor and acted coquettishly with him. She was also very familiar with the other nobles, so why would she be nervous? Sister Wan is going to be the princess consort in the future. If you spend more time with her, you won't be nervous when you meet other people. Sunny Jia smiled. How is that the same? It's two different things, okay? It's not a big deal. You'll be fine after experiencing this a few more times. There will be plenty of opportunities in the future. Jingwan patted their arms. Zhou Shuang and Yuan Xiaoqiao might not know each other well, but Sunny Jia knew very well that Jingwan wanted to help them, or rather, protect them. Women of their birth were not of high or low status. If they had the support of a princess consort, they would have a much better life in their in-laws' family after they got married. Even if they did not have any children, their in-laws would not dare to make things difficult for them. Moreover, if their husbands wanted to favor their concubines and neglect their wives, they would have to think twice. Jingwan especially hated this kind of thing. Sister Wan was indeed a person who drew a clear line between love and hate. Although it was not to the extent that love makes one live, hate makes one die, she was not stingy when it came to her ability. Nanny Gong and the others had already prepared the clothes for Jingwan after the hairpin ceremony. She didn't need to choose at this moment. She quickly changed her clothes and dressed up. Sunny Jia was inadvertently attracted by the hairpin taken from Jingwan's hair. She instantly thought of the same question as Great Elder Princess. Where are the hairpin and hairpin? Third young madam. Here they are. Qing Zhu brought a tray over. Sunny Jia reached out and took a look. Sure enough, they were there. What's wrong? Is there anything special about these things? Yuan Xiaoqiao leaned forward and asked. Nothing. They just look very unique. Sun Yijia smiled faintly. It was so disrespectful to switch the things rewarded by the Empress. Even if she knew it, it was better to pretend that she didn't know. Even if it was exposed in the end, the culprit would take the blame. It had nothing to do with the Luo family. According to Sun Yijia's understanding of that aunt of hers, her tolerance towards Jin Qinhuang was out of the ordinary. She was even able to give up her dignity as the Empress. It was probably because she was able to endure to this extent that Jin Qinhuang did not find trouble with her. After all, she was still the Empress. Such a compromise was too much and was indeed not easy to handle. Many times, Sun Yijia admired her aunt very much. However, she was the noblest woman in the world, but she was tolerant of the nominal son of a concubine. Even if it was an expedient measure to protect herself by retreating in order to advance, she was not only aggrieved, but also made others think that she was a coward and easy to bully. Of course, other people in the harem couldn't bully her. She was the only one who compromised. Moreover, she had only confronted Prince Jin a few times. Few people knew about it. But so what? After Jingwan dressed up, Sun Yijia felt ashamed of her own inferiority. How could such a tender cabbage be eaten by a pig outside? Leaving the begonia house, Jingwan, as today's main character, naturally had to entertain the guests. Just now, old Madame Luo had already sent someone to inform them to go directly to Shiyuan. Everyone went there to watch the opera. At the entrance of Shiyuan, Jingwan saw the listless Gu Xiaomei. Jingwan's first reaction was, oh, her life was quite tough. She didn't die. At that time, the doctor said that she might not make it. In the end, she was thrown to the country estate. No one took care of her, but she stubbornly survived. As long as she was still alive, Jingwan didn't find it strange that she would appear here. Her uncle and aunt were quite sensible. They moved out on their own. As long as they didn't fall out with each other, it was natural for them to visit her when she became of age. When Gu Xiaomei saw Jingwan, her eyes were filled with bone-deep hatred. However, she quickly withdrew her gaze and even greeted Jingwan properly. She lowered her head and stood to the side. It was obvious that she wanted Jingwan to go in first. Logically speaking, Gu Xiaomei was an elder. Jingwan wasn't married. Even if she was a daughter of an official, she didn't have a rank. When one didn't care about status, one naturally had to consider seniority. Did she really not know the rules? Or was she doing it on purpose? Even Sun Yijia's eyes were sharp when she looked at her. Jingwan felt very speechless. You were the one who wanted to get close to that man. You were taught a lesson by him. Now you hate me. Isn't this role reversed? Shouldn't you be the one who should be angry? Why is Wanwan standing at the entrance? Greetings, Your Highness. The group of people hurriedly greeted him. No need for formalities. Who is this? Li Hongyuan's gaze fell on Gu Xiaomei. It was obvious that these people had stopped at the entrance because of her. Where did she come from? Jingwan was surprised. Your Highness, you don't know her? Li Hongyuan raised his eyebrows. Should this prince know her? Jingwan thought for a moment. This prince didn't see her face clearly at that time. Or maybe he just met her once and couldn't remember her at all. Both seemed to be reasonable. No. Jingwan glanced at Gu Xiaomei and saw her body tremble. Speaking of which, the person she wanted to pursue, the person who almost killed her, didn't have any impression of her. This was a big blow. Let's go in. Li Hongyuan stepped into the west garden first. Jingwan followed him in a step behind. Sun Yijia and the other two deliberately slowed down a few steps. Regarding Gu Xiaomei's glorious deeds, Sun Yijia didn't see it with her own eyes, but she heard her husband talk about it. The other two were even more eyewitnesses. They were all D daughters. When they were at home, they saw many of their fathers disgusting Yinyang. Therefore, they deeply detested people like Gu Xiaomei. Ying Shuang, you say, why are there so many wretched people in this world? If it's a man who flirts with flowers and grass, it's fine. But there are also girls who shamelessly throw themselves at him, encouraging those men's arrogance. They become more and more unscrupulous simply. Zhou Yingshuang covered her mouth. It's getting more and more outrageous, spouting nonsense. Who doesn't know that Jin Qinwang is now wholeheartedly focused on Jingwan? Moreover, he has always been uninterested in people who throw themselves at him. Yuan Xiaoqiao pulled her hand away and smiled. You're right, the title of living king of hell is not for nothing. Luckily, he escaped once, but he's still not tactful. If he wants to throw himself at him again, he probably needs to tell his family in advance, and remember to collect the corpse at the mass grave. What's the use of telling his family? Jin Qinwang likes to be implicated. Alright, don't say these unlucky words. Let's hurry and go in. Sun Yijia urged. Only then did the two people remember that they shouldn't say such dirty things to a pregnant person's ears. They smiled apologetically and held Sun Yijia's arms, one on the left and one on the right, as they walked into the west garden. From afar, they could hear the sound of singing. Bypassing a bush of flowers and trees, they saw the stage. Jin Qinwang was still talking with Jingwan and didn't have the slightest intention of going to the male guest seats to sit and watch the play. Therefore, a certain person's purpose for coming here was obviously an ulterior motive. Fortunately, although the two people were close, Jin Qinwang still had a bit of a gentleman's demeanor. Probably because a certain person's reputation was really too bad, even if they were close. Jingwan was also coerced and was a victim. In the current situation, where women had always been strict, unexpectedly, no one accused Jingwan of anything. When they saw it, they also turned a blind eye. Jingwan gradually became aware of this point. She faintly looked at Li Hongyuan. Wanya is doing this on purpose, right? Li Hongyuan looked at Jingwan rather puzzledly. What? Pretend. You can continue to pretend with all your might. Nothing. Li Hongyuan chuckled. He had subtly stepped on his father's bottom line step by step, so that his father absolutely indulged him now. He could also subtly step on everyone's cognition. Of course, he didn't intend to do anything in front of others. When he stood with her, he only needed to prevent her from being criticized. It was so simple, so he didn't need to spend more than 10 years like the former, and it seemed that he was about to achieve it now. When they were in the courtyard of the summer palace, Sun Ijia had seen how lovey-dovey the two of them were. At this moment, she secretly rolled her eyes and pulled Yuan Xiaoqiao, who didn't know what happened, away with Zhouing Shuang. Great elder princess took a book and ordered a play, which had already finished. Then a princess of the same generation ordered a play and also finished it. They were modest to each other. Madam Son of Ding General Manor also ordered a play and also finished it. Then, these old things didn't take advantage of their seniority and let the juniors order what they liked. But speaking of it, Madam Luo, where did you hire this troupe? They are really good at singing. Yes, I don't know anyone in this troupe. Since they are so good at singing, how can they not be famous at all? They were sent here by Prince Jin's order. I think they should be the troupe raised by Prince Jin himself. Madame Luo didn't evade and said bluntly. Everyone fell silent. They originally wanted to invite the troupe back to their own families to perform next time. Well, they were raised by the king of hell again. Don't think about anything else. They glanced at the leading actress on the stage. She had a slim figure, a gentle voice, and a beautiful face. There seemed to be several of them. In many people's eyes, an actress was similar to a prostitute, a lowly thing that couldn't be seen in public. There were also a bunch of foxes raised by so many people. Prince Jin specially sent them here today. Did he value third Miss Luo, or did he specially send them here to slap her in the face? This old Madame Luo was really able to keep her composure. If it was someone else, if the young lady that was held in the palm of their hands was treated like this, they would have long exploded in anger. However, the other party was Jin Qinhuang, a living king of hell. There was no need to say anything. Even if she said anything, it would also be a waste of time. From the beginning, Madame Luo knew that with such a prospective grandson-in-law, the Luo family would definitely be hated. Whether it was sympathy or gloating, she knew clearly in her heart whether it was sweet or bitter. As for whether he would prove to the world how he treated Wan Wan, Madame Luo didn't want to say anything now. She just waited and saw. Great elder princess, who didn't know the inside story, felt unbalanced. Why was her adopted daughter bullied by that evil creature? Where is Jingwan? Why haven't I seen her for so long? When she said this, she was clearly looking at the two figures who were only one step away from each other. Others didn't dare to go up, but Nanny Gong didn't have that concern. Miss, great elder princess is looking for you. Jingwan subconsciously looked back and looked at the main seat of the female guests. Her foster mother was looking at her. She was a little far away, so she couldn't see clearly. However, Jingwan felt that her foster mother seemed to be angry. She felt a little guilty and short of breath inexplicably, as if she only cared about her love and left all the elders, relatives, and guests aside. Your Highness, I'll leave first. Without waiting for him to respond, Jingwan squatted down and quickly left. Li Honyuan watched Jingwan's figure disappear for a moment and soon appeared on the second floor of the balcony. She first greeted the noblewomen, and then held great elder princess's arm and acted coquettishly with a smile on her face. Li Honyuan didn't know what great elder princess said to her. Li Honyuan crossed his arms in front of his chest and leaned against the rockery. His legs were crossed, and his whole body looked very lazy. On the stage, there were plays one after another, and there was even a martial arts play. Li Honyuan was absent-minded and hadn't seen Jingwan for a long time. He heard voices coming from the direction of the courtyard gate. It was the men who had finished their relationship and came to watch the play to kill time. Li Honyuan stood up straight and went straight to the female guest seats. Seeing Li Honyuan come upstairs, the maid hurriedly reported to Madame Luo. As the master and an old lady, Madame Luo didn't need to care about trivial things. So Madame Luo had been sitting on the side with Li Honyuan all the time. She didn't sit relatively at the back according to her status, but in the first row with great elder princess. Therefore, Great Elder Princess naturally heard the maid's words. Great Elder Princess just wanted to pull him over and give him a good scolding. Li Hongyuan was clever and came to the door himself. He turned a deaf ear to the greetings that came one after another along the way, and those elders did not take the initiative to greet him either. However, she didn't argue with him. If she really let him take the initiative, she would be worried that her life would be shortened. He didn't care about others, but he still had to give face to his aunt. However, before he spoke, Great Elder Princess scolded him. Don't you know how to avoid arousing suspicion? Great Elder Princess had a good relationship with Luchingdi, so she would scold these nephews and nephews. When she scolded them, they could only listen obediently. Li Hongyuan didn't feel much pain and was not much different from his father. Li Hongyuan sat down next to her. I didn't do anything shameful. I just said a few words. Why should I avoid arousing suspicion? Jingwan is my fiancée. She is coming of age today, and tomorrow we can ask the Ministry of Rights to prepare for the marriage. Master Liaochen said that we are a match made in heaven. Is there anything wrong with this marriage that makes me avoid her other fiancé? There was a hint of coldness in his words. What nonsense are you talking about? Shut up. Great Elder Princess snapped. For the sake of this vile creature's marriage, her imperial brother was worried to death. If something really went wrong, even if she, as his younger sister, said something she shouldn't say, she was afraid that he would take his anger out on her. In this case, Jingwan is destined to be mine. Then, what's wrong with talking to her before the marriage to get familiar with her? I don't want to meet someone I know nothing about when I get married. Even if I, Li Hongyuan, want to do something disgraceful, I will do it openly. Jingwan immediately spat at him in her heart. Bastard, don't you have done a lot of things secretly? To be able to say such words without blushing or panting. His face was truly unparalleled in the world. Jingwan silently lowered her head and pretended to be shy. However, many people around him nodded in agreement. It seemed that this bastard had a lot of credibility. Am I talking about this? There are so many female guests here. There are so many unmarried girls. You are a man. Imperial Aunt Li Hongyuan interrupted her. In all honesty, I didn't even look at them. On the contrary, I don't know how many of them looked at me. If there's anyone avoiding me, it should be them avoiding Ben Wang. Great Elder Princess was at a loss for words. Get out of here. Go to the male guest area or get out of the garden. Li Hongyuan got up and walked away slowly. Great Elder Princess breathed a sigh of relief. This evil girl had committed too many sins. She couldn't control him at all. As long as he didn't go too far, she'd better leave him alone. Otherwise, she would be angered to death. What she worried most was that other people would follow his example and use this excuse to have private affairs. It would be terrible if they broke the rules. However, it was hard to find another man who was as bold as him and wouldn't be beaten by the girls. Great Elder Princess patted Jingwan's head, who seemed to be too ashamed to show her face. Good girl, I'm sorry. Jingwan didn't say anything. Well, she didn't feel wronged, but it was best to shut up now. Foster mother, I'll go downstairs and see if there's anything wrong. Go ahead. Knowing that she was shy, Great Elder Princess would let her go. After Jingwan's figure disappeared, Great Elder Princess looked at Madame Luo and said, Madame Luo, we are sorry to your family. Please forgive us. She meant we, including Luchingdi. Madame Luo showed a helpless and forced smile at the right time. Great Elder Princess, you are too serious. On the other side of the wall, Li Hongyuan was drinking tea casually. The others were talking and laughing. They were enjoying themselves. Jingwan walked around downstairs. Most of the people here were unmarried girls and young women who had just married. After making sure that there was nothing rude, Jingwan was ready to sit down and chat with others and eat something. Jingwan believed that eldest aunt wouldn't make any mistakes in handling these matters. But not long after she sat down, a maid came in and whispered something in Jingwan's ear. Jingwan's expression didn't change. She greeted a few people nearby and went out. After leaving the two-story pavilion for some time, Lin Mingya said, "Bai Xiao, go and ask grandmother to come down. Also, tell old Madam Sun of Ding General Manor to ask her to call sister-in-law upstairs. You just wait by the side and don't let anyone disturb her." "Yes, Mississippi." Jingwan led others out of the garden. She waited at the gate of the garden for a while and saw Madame Luo come out. "Wanwan, what happened?" Old Madame Luo asked, her expression calm as usual. Chang Lingshan intended to drug third brother. However, second brother was drugged. Third brother was furious when he found out and pushed Chang Lingshan, who also took the drug, into the pool. She was unlucky and hit a stone on the side. Her left eyebrow was directly broken from the middle and almost hurt her eye. Second aunt is making a scene. Speaking of which, what should come will come. Since the day third brother and sister-in-law got married, since Chang Lingshan targeted Luo Jinghua and Sun Yijia's dowry, what happened today was not surprising. However, what Jingwan couldn't figure out was why her cousin always came to her. Was it easier to trick her because she was a relative? She was a relative and wouldn't be too ruthless. What is she doing? Which one of them should be responsible? Madame Luo didn't even raise her eyebrows. Digression, since they were very supportive, the author decided to do the same. Yesterday, it was a little late and didn't pass the review, so the author wrote an extra 3,000 words. Today, I will update 10,000 times. If I am not careful, I will update at night. Starting today, I will update in the morning. The latest update will be after 9 o'clock. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653307. HTML. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com, Bikaga mobile reading website, mbicken.com. Chapter 223. What is she making a fuss about? Which one of the brothers is responsible? Madame Luo's eyebrows didn't even twitch. Jingwan held Madame Luo's arm. "Grandmother, who do you think second aunt wants to be responsible?" Madame Luo sneered and didn't answer Jingwan's question. Obviously, she knew what was going on. Compared to Luo Jingming, Luo Jinghua was the son of the first wife and pioneered a new way of painting. Now, meticulous brushwork was slowly becoming more popular and more popular. It was almost certain that he would become a master of his generation. Although he married a wife, her face was disfigured and her dowry was very generous. The latter was the son of a concubine, and his father was bedridden. He was currently studying in the Imperial College and had the title of a scholar. In comparison, his advantage should be that he was single. There was a saying, "It's better to be a poor woman than an emperor's concubine." However, in reality, how many women had such willpower and feelings? Luo Jinghua and Luo Jingming were far from the difference between an emperor and a commoner. The biggest difference between them was nothing more than fame, future, and wealth. However, these were already enough. Many people pursued these for their entire lives. There were still people who believed that Luo Jinghua wouldn't like Sun Yijia. Most people believed that a girl's face was everything. If her face was disfigured, her everything would be ruined. At the same time, they also believed that men only cared about a girl's face. How ridiculous! The relevant people had already gathered in the second branch's main courtyard, Plum Residence. When Jingwan and Madame Luo arrived, the second aunt of the Luo family was sitting arrogantly on the main seat. It was as if she was the owner of this place and was showing off her powerful presence to others. As for the others, they didn't look very good, especially Luo Jingming. His hair was still wet. If she remembered correctly, he should have changed his clothes. His face was a little pale, but there was an abnormal flush on his cheeks. It seemed that the effects of the medicine he had taken had not dissipated. She didn't know if he had been splashed with water or if he had swum in the water himself. When he saw Madame Luo, His aura weakened slightly. He stood up unwillingly and bowed with the others. Madame Luo's expression was indifferent. After she sat down, she asked, "What exactly do you want?" Second Miss Luo's breathing stagnated, as if she had suffered a great blow. "Mother, what are you saying? Your granddaughter has been bullied to this extent, and you're asking me what I want to do? What do I want to do? What can I do? I just want to seek justice for my pitiful daughter." Then, he clenched his teeth and put on an extremely aggrieved look. "Justice? What kind of justice do you want?" Madame Luo's face was cold. Jinghua hurt her face. How can she get married in the future? "Don't tell me we're just going to let it go like this?" The Luo family's second grandaunt's voice was somewhat sharp. Luo Jinghua's face was gloomy. At this time, he even wanted to disregard his status and beat her up. He was usually a free and easy person. Even though he had matured a lot after getting married, his nature was still somewhat casual. Now, it could be seen that he was furious, but in the end, he held it in. "Then why don't you tell me why Jing Bo would hurt someone?" When Madame Luo asked this question, the Luo family's second grandaunt's face was full of resentment. She suddenly looked at Luo Jingming with a gaze that looked as if she wanted to eat him up. "You'll have to ask my good nephew about this. He's so black-hearted that he actually schemed against his own cousin. Ling Shan's innocence was almost ruined by him." At this time, Luo Jingming was feeling terrible. It was probably because of his family background. Among the three oldest brothers, he was the most reserved. However, as the saying goes, even a person made of mud had a temper. He had suffered an unexpected calamity and was even blamed for it. Naturally, his mood was not good. He glanced coldly at the Luo family's second grandaunt. "Is Chang Lingshan an outstanding beauty? Or is your Jiang family's high status worthy of him coveting her? Don't flatter yourself." In reality, even though Luo Jingming was the son of a concubine, his upbringing was not bad at all. His future might not be as good as Luo Jing was, but as long as he steadily walked down the path, his future would definitely not be bad. In addition, the Luo family's current momentum was great. There were too many people who wanted to form an alliance through marriage. However, the children of the Luo family, who were not of age, would directly reject marriage. Luo Jingming was very popular. The fact that he was the son of a concubine might have some impact, but he was personally taught by Luo Peishan, just like the other two brothers. That little flaw was not enough to make a difference. Moreover, don't forget about those who had secretly pledged their allegiance to Jin Qinhuang. Their daughters could not enter Jin Qinhuang Fu. If they wanted to have a closer relationship with him, they would naturally have to slow down their efforts. The other princes would definitely not be able to do so. Jin Wangfei's maternal family was the best candidate. Thus, not to mention Luo Jingming, there was no need to worry about anyone else. Luo Jingming's marriage had long been put on the agenda. Now, they had basically circled a few families and were only doing the final selection. Everyone's upbringing, talent, appearance, family background, and character all surpassed that of Chang Lingshan. Only water would enter his brain to plot against Chang Lingshan. Old Madame Luo also pointed out all these without any trace of politeness. Second eldest Miss Luo's face stiffened. Then, tears streamed down her face. "Mother, I'm not your biological daughter. You really don't like me. My marriage is not as good as eldest sisters and third sisters. So be it. Now Ling Shan is also. Enough. The children are here. I don't want to peel off your face." Second eldest Miss Luo's lips trembled, but she didn't dare to say anything else. Jing Wan felt that it was strange. Although this second aunt was born of a concubine, she was raised by her grandmother. Everyone said that she and her grandmother were no different from biological mother and daughter. When she was in Qian Prefecture, Jing Wan had heard about it from her grandmother's servants. Indeed, she wasn't considered bad. However, Jing Wan could roughly sense that she wasn't particularly good. At least, she couldn't compare to her other two aunts. Jing Wan believed in her grandmother's character. Once she accepted her grandmother, she probably wouldn't treat her differently. Now, it seemed that she didn't just dislike her. This second aunt must have done something to anger her grandmother and made her hate her. In fact, although second aunts-in-laws weren't as good as the other two sisters, second uncle's character was very good. Back then, they were both chosen by Luo Peishan. At that time, he was far from the position he was in today. Don't think that you're the only smart ones who treat the world as fools. You and your daughter's hearts are full of twists and turns, yet you dare to play around in front of me. If you wanted Jingming to marry Chang Lingshan, I would reluctantly look up to you. It's been almost 20 years, and you still haven't changed. A good child was taught to be like this by you. Take Chang Lingshan and immediately get out of the Luo family. Remember this, even if she loses her innocence today, she can forget about entering the Luo family. Second eldest Miss Luo looked at old Madame Luo in disbelief. Mother, you're actually so heartless? Indiscriminately convicting Lingshan. How could you? How could you? Old Madame Luo only looked at her indifferently, as if she was looking at a stranger. She was probably really hurt by old Madame Luo's words. Her face broke down. Mother, Luo Rongping and I are both born of a concubine. You even treat his concubine son well, but you treat my legitimate daughter like this. Now get out of here obediently. The Luo family is still your maternal family, otherwise, second eldest Miss Luo's face was green and white, like a color palette. You're actually so heartless, so heartless. Fine, I'll leave. She wiped away her tears, as if her heart was completely broken, revealing a sense of despair. Jingwan sighed. Sure enough, everyone was a king of acting. They were clearly afraid of grandmother's threat, afraid that they would really lose the Luo family, but they seemed to be sad and desperate because of grandmother's heartlessness. However, Jingwan looked at grandmother's eye with a little admiration. She was really domineering and mighty. Second eldest Miss Luo took the injured Chang Lingshan and left. Before leaving, she kept crying and making a fuss. In the end, she was directly slapped twice by her mother, scolding her for being a slut with a cheap life and for not being reincarnated into a good family. She deserved to end up like this today. Everyone knew that she was scolding Chang Lingshan for everyone present to hear. However, old Madame Luo was completely indifferent, so she had no choice but to leave. No matter how resentful and unwilling she was in her heart, she had to bow her head in front of power. Chang Lingshan was also a little pitiful. A large part of his brow bone was bandaged, and the specific injury could not be seen. The area that was not covered was also red and swollen. As a result, there were 2 more palm prints on his face. However, this pitiful person must have something hateful. If she did not have any evil thoughts, this would not have happened. After sending them away, old Madame Luo stood up. There are still so many guests in the residence. Go do what you need to do. You 2 brothers should properly reflect on today's matter. Both of you are so stupid. After Jingwan and old Madame Luo left, the remaining few people were still a little stunned. Was it over just like that? Luo Jinghua and Luo Jingming looked at each other. Indeed, they had both made stupid mistakes today. Luo Jingming had been easily tricked, and Luo Jinghua was even more stupid. He did not have to involve himself at all, other than letting Chang Lingshan get involved with him. It did not have any effect on the original matter at all. However, even if they were scolded for being stupid, they still admired their grandmother. She had resolved the matter so cleanly. They originally thought that it would be very troublesome, and they might really let a disgusting person into the family. Jingwan also had similar thoughts. She originally thought that it would be a tough battle, and wanted to see if she could help a little. She just watched a show for free. She even left her sister-in-law with her biological grandmother in advance, worried that it would affect her. In the end, all her worries were in vain. However, old Madame Luo's words and deeds also told us that relatives were not easy to trick. Relatives were not easy to be ruthless, but it was also easier to be ruthless. There were some things that outsiders might have some misgivings about, such as today's matter. If it was someone else, old Madame Luo probably would not have handled it so simply and crudely. What is Wan Wan thinking about? The matter just now, the result was expected. This process, old Madame Luo laughed in spite of herself. Grandmother will tell you one thing today. When you can borrow power, don't be polite. When you can hold others, don't be soft-hearted, and even more so, don't be soft-hearted. Even if it was a former relative, when you want to control him, it already shows that he is not worth your effort. Therefore, there is no need to be polite. Jin Qinhuang is a good banner. Digression. https://www.bicken.com/11807/6653309. HTML chapter error. Click here to report registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bicken.com Mobile Edition Reading Website, Bicken.com. Chapter 224. How did it become Jin Qinhuang in the blink of an eye? Well, Jingwan also admitted that Jin Qinhuang's banner was very useful. She should be very happy to use it for herself. Grandmother was right. When needed, it would be a waste not to use it. When they returned to Shi Yuan, Sun Yijia sat next to her grandmother. She was a little restless and frequently looked in the direction of the back stairs. The drama on the stage, let alone seriously watching. She was afraid that she didn't even listen to a single word. Seeing Jingwan and old Madame Luo appear, she stood up and walked over quickly. Grandmother, Wan Mimi, old Madame Luo nodded and walked away. Jingwan also knew that she was anxious, so she simply whispered in her ear. Sun Yijia's eyes slightly widened, the corners of her mouth slightly hooked up. Grandmother is amazing. Jingwan smiled, but didn't say anything. And she also thought so. The people here were all shrewd people. When old Madame Luo left, old Madame Sun sent someone to call Sun Yijia to her side. She sensed that something might have happened in the Luo family. But now that she was smiling so happily, it probably wasn't a big problem. After a glance, she no longer paid attention. Which family would be fine? In the entire capital, it wasn't like there weren't any families that were in turmoil every day. Jingwan helped Sun Yijia settle down and began to shuttle between the ladies with ease. One pulled her to say a few words, another pulled her to praise a few words. Although she could completely handle it, her face was stiff from smiling. It wasn't a smile of genuine joy. It wasn't just her face that was tired, it was also her heart. Jingwan felt that those people who were born with a smiling face would be a great weapon in this kind of situation. But that kind of person, in a sad situation, would be easily pointed out by everyone, so it was better not to be envious. Fortunately, when Jingwan felt that she couldn't hold on anymore, the banquet finally started. Similarly, many officials also came to the Luo family after leaving the Amen. After a round of toasting, although there were still a lot of things left on the table, especially the women's banquet in the back courtyard, it could be considered that the host and guests enjoyed themselves to the fullest. Except for a few small flaws, everything else could be said to be perfect. After the guests left one after another, Zhou Yingshuang, who was the guest of honor, and several other attendants helped to send the guests off. She also brought Yuan Xiaoqiao with her, intentionally or unintentionally. Of course, there was also her younger sister, Luo Jingyu, whom outsiders thought was completely beneath Jingwan's notice. Jingwan thought that Luo Jingyu's temperament was a little timid and dull, so she thought that after Sun Yijia married into the family, she would ask her, the eldest sister-in-law of the second branch, to help train her. Sun Yijia didn't spend much time with Luo Jingyu. Most of the time, Luo Jingyu was taught by Sun Yijia's nanny. When the marriage discussion started next year, she probably wouldn't have to worry about in-laws. Concubine Ji was grateful to Jingwan because she knew that Jingwan didn't like concubines, so she never took the initiative to get close to her. Usually, she helped Zhang Shi manage the second branch. Now, she didn't want to have a son. She completely understood that as long as her two daughters weren't disliked by their sister, they wouldn't be bad in the future. Perhaps Third Miss didn't like the concubine's brothers and sisters, but she didn't like their status. She didn't have much dislike for them. As long as they didn't provoke her, she wouldn't do anything to them. When necessary, she would even help them. In order not to be a burden to her children, Concubine Ji became invisible in the Luo Rongyen. Concubine Ping, who gave birth to a son, had always followed Concubine Ji's lead in this aspect, and was invisible in the entire second branch. When Great Elder Princess was about to leave, Wang Zhu Yuyao made a fuss and refused to go back. Great Elder Princess indulged her and asked Jingwan to play with her for 2 days. Wang Zhu Yuyao wasn't the youngest in Great Elder Princess's mansion, but she was the senior. Moreover, because her mother didn't like her sister-in-law, even if there were children who were 1 or 2 years younger than her, they couldn't play with her. Sometimes Yuyao was a little naughty. In fact, she didn't cause any harm, but she was regarded as a little devil by her nephews, nieces, and sisters-in-law. Yuyao curled her lips. She didn't want to talk to them. Great Elder Princess looked at the girls in front of her kindly and said, "You are all good girls. If you have a chance, come to Great Elder Princess's mansion with Jingwan and play with her." Great Elder Princess loved Jingwan, and she was also supporting them in a disguised way. The girls were a little flattered and hurriedly thanked her. Great Elder Princess also gave Jingwan a few words of advice. In the end, only the relatives and friends of the Luo family were left. Even old Madame Sun didn't stay for long. Today, she was the only one who came to the Luo family. The others in Ding General Manor were directly forbidden by her. According to her, she knew that Sun Yijia was very good in the Luo family, and this was enough. Jingwan's adulthood ceremony was so grand that some people would talk about it for a while. Among other things, as soon as Prince Rui and his wife returned to the prince's mansion, they were told by the servants that concubine Ing had a stomachache again. Princess Rui glanced at Prince Rui. Seeing that he didn't change his expression, she didn't say anything. Prince Rui didn't want to talk to her at first, but he seemed to think of something and asked, "Is she only a little younger than the third Miss Luo?" "It seems to be only a day younger," said Princess Rui. "A day? Only a day?" They were born under the same roof, have the same surname, and eat the same food. But one of them is in the sky, the moon surrounded by stars, while the other is in the ground, deserted by all. Prince Rui seemed to be talking to himself. Obviously, the bigger the gap between Luo Jingying and Jingwan, the more unwilling he was in his heart. She doesn't know that today is her third sister's adulthood ceremony. Send someone to tell her and let her be happy for her third sister. Happy? It was more like he would go crazy. No matter what, she's still pregnant. No matter what, it's still your child. Is your heart so heartless? Aren't you afraid that if you do this too many times, there won't be any more children in this family? Your Highness is right. I will ask someone to talk to Concubine Ing. She must be regretful that she didn't see it with her own eyes. Telling her in detail may give her some comfort. Yes, this was what he was most satisfied with about Princess Rui. She could always think of his thoughts and be of one mind with him. No matter how gentle and polite Li Hongming was to others, he wasn't a broad-minded person. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done this kind of thing. This was simply a method of jealousy in the inner house. You are a man who wants to control the world. Doing this kind of thing is really a bit despicable. However, Princess Rui didn't show it at all. She could roughly guess Li Hongming's mentality. Seeing how outstanding Luo Jingying was compared to Concubine Ing, he probably felt that he was cheated. Maybe he even thought that if it wasn't for Luo Jingying seducing him, it might be a different scene today. At the very least, he would lose his virginity before marriage. No matter what, he could still take her as a concubine and control the Luo family more than now. But he didn't think about it. If he didn't take the girl's body, and Luo Jingshu was determined not to have anything to do with him, would she let her granddaughter be his concubine? The most innocent was still the child. Its mother was regarded as lowly and unscrupulous by its shameless father. And such a father didn't care about its existence. To be reincarnated into such a child, it probably had 8 lifetimes of bad luck. There were many capable people by Princess Rue's side. She casually ordered one of her mamas. However, this nanny had a grudge against Luo Jingying. When Luo Jingying was favored, Luo Jingying had ruthlessly humiliated her. She had always been proud of herself in front of the princess consort. Humiliating Luo Jingying was akin to killing one's mother and stealing one's child. So she bore a grudge against Luo Jingying. During this period of time, she had secretly made trouble for Luo Jingying. However, Luo Jingying relied on the piece of meat in her belly and did not suffer too much. Now, she had an opportunity to openly humiliate Luo Jingying. She found someone who was eloquent and sarcastic. She briefly explained the situation and asked those people to tell concubine Ing in detail. That woman understood tacitly and accepted the benefits. She patted her chest and promised that she would be satisfied. She obviously didn't see it with her own eyes, but based on the basic things, she infinitely exaggerated and described it vividly, as if the scene was worthy of being crowned by the emperor. It was originally a story full of loopholes, but it was related to Luo Jingwan, her biggest enemy. Since birth, they were destined to be incompatible. Naturally, if Luo Jingwan wasn't good, she would be relieved. If Luo Jingwan was good, she would be struck by lightning. She would never have a coming-of-age ceremony in this lifetime, not to mention endless glory, being surrounded by countless people, being envied by countless people, and receiving a mountain of precious gifts. She could easily bully and humiliate herself. The person who held the power to kill her also praised her. She tried every means to get something that she couldn't get, but she carefully placed it in front of her. She even had to worry whether she liked it or not. Why, she roared, screamed, and questioned, but she would never get an answer. Luo Jingying, whose temper had been somewhat restrained, flew into a rage and smashed everything in the room. She didn't know that she was injured. Because of the anger in her heart, Luo Jingying only came back to her senses when she felt a wave of heat overflowing from her lower body. Luo Jingying's face turned pale. She hugged her stomach and cried out in pain. Blood quickly dyed her dress red. It wasn't the first time that the people who served her had seen her go crazy, and it wasn't the first time that she saw blood. However, that child had always been lucky. After taking 2 doses of miscarriage prevention medicine, it would be fine. It gave people the illusion that her pregnancy was stable and nothing would happen to her no matter what. But this time was different from before. With so much blood, that child was most likely the group of people were scared out of their wits. As for the person who had angered Luo Jingying, he had been smug at first, but now his legs and stomach were trembling. He took advantage of the chaos to slip out, but his heart was beating extremely fast. It was over, it was all over. His mind was blank, and the only thing left was this thought. When Princess Rue learned that Luo Jingying had asked for a doctor again, she didn't even lift her eyelids. It was expected. But this time, Princess Rue didn't wait for long. The servant girl trembled and reported. Princess Rue didn't wait for her to speak. Her heart thumped. She knew that this time it was probably not good. She hurried over. As soon as she stepped into the room, the servant who served her immediately knelt down. Princess Rue only felt that her legs were a little weak, and her head was a little dizzy. The doctor came out and directly apologized to Princess Rue. "I'm incompetent. Princess, please forgive me." Princess Rue calmed down and rubbed her swollen and painful temples. "Where is Shiqiang?" "Princess, she's not well. She's unconscious." "Did the child fall out?" "Princess, the child is still in the belly." Then quickly prescribe a dose of medicine to make the child fall out. Make sure that it's clean. Then take a good look at her. Don't leave a lasting illness that will affect her fertility in the future. Yes. The doctor hurriedly wrote a prescription, filled the medicine, boiled the medicine, and then poured it down the throat of Luo Jingying, who was in a coma. Princess Rue had been sitting outside the whole time. She didn't say anything about leaving, and she didn't ask the servant to leave. After the medicine was poured down the throat, she sent someone to inform Prince Rue. Prince Rue frowned, paused, and decided to take a look. As soon as Li Hongming walked to the door, he heard an old maid in the room say in a trembling voice, "Princess, the child is born. It's a boy." Li Hongming staggered slightly and subconsciously clenched his fists. He thought that he wouldn't care about it, but the result was far from being as calm as he expected. Children were the inheritance of a man. Without children, it was equal to cutting off the family line. He had 2 legitimate daughters, and the others either died at birth or died in the belly. None of them was a boy. This was the first child confirmed to be a boy. If it was born safely, it would be his eldest son. It was okay when he didn't know, but now he knew. His heart was burning with pain. Seeing Prince Rue come in with a gloomy face, Princess Rue looked a little sad and said, "Your Highness, why is it gone?" His voice was frighteningly gloomy. https://www.beacon.com/11/11807/6653310. HTML. Click here to report. No registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.beacon.com. Beacon. Com mobile version, reading URL, mbeacon.com. Chapter 225. Princess Rue would not stupidly go against him at this time. This man had a great tolerance for her. The premise was that she was sensible enough and smart enough to know what to do and what not to do. If she crossed the line, she would not have a good ending. Prince Rue glanced at Princess Lu and directly grabbed a servant girl. The servant girl stammered and did not make it clear. As a result, Li Hongming directly ordered people to drag her out and beat her to death. Then the second servant girl was followed. The servant girl was afraid that she would end up like the first one, so she hurriedly spilled the beans. Li Hongming had realized that he was the cause. His face was so ugly that it was indescribable. But would he admit it? Absolutely not. He just asked people to tell Luo Jingying. That was all. Li Hongming glanced at Princess Lu sharply. Princess Lu twitched the corner of her mouth stiffly and said nothing. Li Hongming did not scold Princess Lu in the end. He just let it go. It was hard to get rid of the depression in his heart. I asked you to serve him, but you were lazy and didn't pay attention. Now that the child is dead, you should go down and continue to serve him. First, you should forgive him. Second, you should protect him from being bullied. Drag all of you out. Your Highness, please spare us. Your Highness, was it useful to beg for mercy? Of course, it was useless. The guards beat them directly. They were not gentle at all. If they resisted and cried, the knives at their waists would hit their heads directly. Blood would immediately flow. Princess Lu slightly looked away. She did not want to see the bloody scene. Even if she had beaten servants to death and witnessed Zhang Wo's execution, she still could not adapt to such a scene. Would it be over after these people were beaten to death? There was still the culprit. As the most direct person to provoke Luo Jingying, the woman packed up her belongings and prepared to escape. However, when she finally found an opportunity to leave through the back door, she was caught just as she was about to step out of the door. Then she was dragged to Li Hongming. At this time, her head was covered in blood. Before Li Hongming could ask anything, she had already confessed that she was the mastermind. Princess Lu took a deep breath. At this point, she knew what Prince Rue was trying to do. Everything would be fine as long as this woman died obediently. Princess Lu wished she could strangle her to death. She could do nothing about it. Princess Lu's mammy also clearly knew what she was going to face. She obediently walked out and knelt down. She directly said that she had a grudge against concubine Ying, so she took the opportunity to take revenge on her. She was willing to accept the punishment. Compared to the others, he was unusually calm. Li Hongming naturally wouldn't be courteous to someone who had offered himself up to appease his anger. He waved his hand and ordered his men to take him away. "Your Highness." Princess Lu finally couldn't help but stand up and grab the mammy. She looked at Prince Rue with pleading eyes. However, Li Hongming's eyes were extremely cold and sharp. He was not moved at all. Princess Lu's body trembled slightly. She grabbed her mammy's clothes and refused to let go. Because she used too much strength, her fingertips turned white. The mammy gently but firmly pushed Princess Lu's hands away. The prince lost his son. Although it was him, she was the one who was aggravated. She was just a servant. How could she compare with the royal grandson? Now she only hoped that her family would not be implicated. However, she didn't dare to ask for mercy in person. But she believed that the princess would protect her family. "I can't continue to serve you in the future. Princess, take care." Princess Lu couldn't help but take 2 steps back. Tears fell down, but she quickly wiped them away. She didn't look at Prince Rue, because once she did, she was afraid that she would show hatred in her eyes. This man was so cold and heartless. Li Hongming cleaned up the mess and left without looking back. He didn't even think of going in to see the woman who had just lost her child. The pain of losing his son seemed to have completely disappeared. Look, this was Prince Rue, who was highly praised by outsiders. In his eyes, there was only the high position. In fact, Princess Lu didn't know that the reason why Li Hongming was so angry was not only because of the child, but also because of Jingwan and Li Hongyuan who embarrassed him. What was more, he was humiliated by Li Hongyuan's eyes. Except for her, there was no one else in the courtyard of Luo Jingying, including the person who was in charge of sweeping. The mess in the room had not been cleaned up. Princess Lu had a little sympathy for Luo Jingying before. After her mammy died, she was kind enough not to tear Luo Jingying apart. Anyway, the child was gone. From now on, she would not give Luo Jingying any protection. Yes, if Princess Lu secretly warned other people in the backyard, Luo Jingying would have had an abortion. Maybe she would have even lost her life. From now on, Luo Jingying could only fend for herself. However, didn't concubine Qi Ying love His Highness so much that she didn't care about anything else? However, His Highness revealed his true colors and beat her down to the ground. She survived and kept the child. Now, because she heard news about her cousin, she had an abortion. Should it be said that her love was too shallow, or that her ruthlessness towards her cousin was too deep? Princess Lu left with her people, and then casually arranged several people to serve Luo Jingying. When Luo Jingying woke up, there was only a strange little maid by the bed. But she was not in the mood to care about her for the time being. The first thing she did was to touch her belly. Her belly had been bulging. She had felt the movement in her belly, but it was gone. Her child was gone? Luo Jingying's expression was one of utter terror. From the moment she found out about the existence of the child, she didn't feel anything special. She only thought of it as a bargaining chip that could tie that man down and help her advance in her career. Later, she even thought of getting rid of the child because of Luo Jingwan's words. However, when she saw Prince Rue's heartlessness and hypocrisy, it could be said that she had nothing but the child in her womb. As the child grew up little by little and moved in her womb for the first time, she truly felt a different kind of emotion. It was indescribable, but her heart was filled with warmth, and she felt a sense of anticipation that she had never felt before. Now it was gone. Luo Jingying went crazy again. Regardless of her health, she broke the things that had just been put on the bed. The little maid originally wanted to stop her, but Luo Jingying was too scary in her eyes. She could only shrink in the corner for fear of hurting herself. The little maid, who had not been trained, did not have the consciousness of protecting her master loyally. There were several people outside, but they were obviously experienced. Hearing the noise in the room, they just stuck their heads out to take a look. Then they continued to eat melon seeds and chat leisurely. Their words were full of disdain for Luo Jingying. Princess Lu had no intention of suppressing everything that happened in this courtyard before. Therefore, the whole prince's mansion knew what should and should not know. This was also Princess Lu's clear attitude and position. Luo Jingying had lost her last trump card. She had no connections in the backyard of Prince Rui's mansion. No help, no help. She could only be trampled on. Many people were ready to have fun and watch a joke. Luo Jingying was in a bad physical condition now. Before she finished smashing, she felt dizzy and fell to the ground. There was little blood under her body again. The little maid who shrank in the corner came out cautiously. Concubine Ing, the little maid was just about to help her up when the people outside came in. A woman who looked a little mean hit the little maid with a broom. Hurry up and clean up the room. But what? Hurry up and clean up. She hit the little maid twice again. The little maid was scared. She did not care about Luo Jingying anymore. These people were so fierce. The adult woman squatted down and looked at Luo Jingying with a smile. Concubine Ing, you'd better take it easy if you want to smash things. The princess has said that if you smash things, there will be no more. You will have to wait until next month to get the quota. Today is only the 6th day of the new year. Luo Jingying might be a little stupid sometimes, but she was definitely smart now. She was very clear about her current situation. All the people who used to serve her were gone. They were either dead or sent to other places. She was completely alone. No, maybe she was alone from the beginning. There was no place for her in this prince's mansion. Concubine Ing, go back to bed. Luo Jingying said lightly. Oh, Concubine Ing, are you still putting on airs? The woman was very disdainful. She even patted her face humiliatingly. Luo Jingying was not hysterical now. She was indifferent, as if there was nothing. I'm the aunt of the Minister of Personnel. The woman seemed to have heard the funniest joke in the world. Who in the prince's mansion doesn't know that you have a bad relationship with the Luo family? So what? My surname is Luo. As long as my surname is Luo, you lowly servants can't touch a single strand of my hair. I'm estranged from the Luo family. They don't want me, but they don't want the Luo family's face. You humiliate me, so to a certain extent, you humiliate the Luo family. Anyway, I have nothing now. Those who are barefooted are not afraid of those who wear shoes. I'll just hang myself. I want to see how the prince will explain it to the Luo family. Even if I die, there will be a group of people coming down to accompany me. Luo Jingying laughed sinisterly. It had to be said that Luo Jingying really stunned them. Yes, she had nothing, but her surname was a great weapon. The Luo family was now at the peak of their power. If one day they suddenly remembered that there was such an aunt, they would definitely be pushed out to apologize to the Luo family. Help me to the bed. Don't make me say the same thing a third time. The woman suppressed her anger and helped Luo Jingying up. She rudely put her on the bed. Give me the medicine. Luo Jingying was still arrogant and bossy, without the slightest trace of politeness. She had already come to this point. She couldn't be treated well just because she showed weakness. Since that was the case, why should she feel wronged? She could live freely for one day. Then, the other concubines who came to see her make a fool of herself saw such a scene after entering the door. She should have been a person with a lot of negative emotions, but she looked quite leisurely. The new servant was ordered around by her with a sullen face. It was not what they expected. Digression. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653312. HTML. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Com Mobile Edition. Chapter 226. You're finally here. You made me wait for so long. But it's good. I'm quite bored now. Luo Jingying was not angry at all when she saw them in the past. She was even in a good mood and waved at them. This was even more strange. Did she lose her mind after losing her child? However, this didn't seem like something a lunatic would do. For a moment, no one spoke first. Luo Jingying sneered. She remembered how these people looked when they found out that she was pregnant. How they looked when they found out that she was pregnant but lost favor. Now, they wanted to hit her when she was down. Before, because the child was still alive, she carefully protected it. Even if she was arrogant and domineering, she was more afraid in appearance and tried to stay as far away from them as possible. Now, she did not care about anything. If others made her unhappy, then everyone would be unhappy together. But she was not in good health now and could not do anything for the time being. Wait until she recovered sure enough. Even if she did not speak for a while, they could not help but be sarcastic after a while. Before losing her child, Luo Jingying might have been easily angered by them. Now, she found that she did not feel anything, so she calmly listened to them scolding her without any vulgarities. Then, when they finally seemed to realize that something was wrong, she slowly opened her mouth. "You don't want to talk anymore? Then, it's my turn to talk. I have no favor, and the child is gone. The Luo family does not care about me at all. It's all right. Do you know why the Luo family does not care about me? It's because I'm blind and do not know what's good for me. Wang Yi wants to win over my grandfather, but unfortunately, my grandfather has no intention of working for him. Wang Yi has his eyes on me, but he does not understand the situation. I have no place in my grandfather's heart. He should be more interested in Luo Jingwan. Luo Jingwan may be annoying, but she's a good judge of character. Our prince probably hasn't even come within 10 feet of my third sister." As she spoke, she burst into laughter. "His Highness has tried every means to get close to the Luo family, and I'm the thread that's equivalent to nothing. However, if I die, this thread will be completely broken. Grandfather might even be able to use this as an excuse to become irreconcilable enemies with His Highness. Oh, now that I think about it, I actually have some use. We all know what kind of person His Highness is. If you let him miss the opportunity to become the Minister of the Ministry of Personnel, what will happen? I'm looking forward to it." The women were frightened. Luo Jingying was threatening them with death. They knew Wang Yi's nature. Originally, they thought it would be better if she died. If what she said was true, then she couldn't die. That feeling of having a fishbone stuck in their throat was really terrible. This is the Wangfu. How can a person's death spread out? The Luo family doesn't care about you. Even if you turn into dust, the Luo family won't know. One of the women expressed her disdain for Luo Jingying's words. "Is that so? Then let's try. Let's see if my mother will suddenly remember me." The women were speechless. A mother wouldn't forget her own child so easily. Until now, she didn't care about her child. They were afraid that she was being suppressed by her parents-in-law. But who could guarantee that there wouldn't be a day when she would loosen up? Not to mention that none of them had a maternal family. Even if they had a maternal family, they definitely wouldn't be able to contend against the Minister of the Ministry of Personnel. Seeing them leave dejectedly, Luo Jingying laughed heartily. Her laughter was very carefree, but to their ears, it was very ear-piercing. Does she really dare to seek death? When you have nothing left, then you will know whether she dares or not. But if you die, then so be it. There won't be a ripple. Luo Jingying laughed until tears came out of her eyes. Her voice stopped abruptly. "All of you, get out." Luo Jingying was now full of sarcasm. The servants couldn't wait to get away from her and quickly got out. When she was left alone, Luo Jingying curled up and cried silently. She missed the days in the Luo family very much. Even if she was angered by Luo Jingying time and time again, she still felt that it was wonderful when she thought about it now. She was still jealous of her, still hated her, but she also really missed her. At that time, when she knew that she was going to enter Prince Rui's mansion, she was arrogant and insufferably arrogant. She probably mocked her in her heart. No, she had always looked down on her and didn't take her seriously. Maybe she just watched for fun. A few months, just a few months. Thinking back to that time, she wanted to be the noblest woman in the world, let everyone crawl at her feet, and let those who looked down on her beg for repentance. She was really too naive and ridiculous. At the beginning when she fell out of favor, she still wanted to get back. But now, She didn't even want to see that man. Without experiencing it, she wouldn't know how cruel the reality was. If she could have a chance, she would rather avoid Luo Jingwan and find a family of equal social status to marry. She didn't realize this at the moment before she lost her child. Otherwise, she wouldn't have heard that Jingwan's grand coming-of-age ceremony led to a miscarriage. Of course, this was only a trigger. In the final analysis, it was because she had seen red more than once, which affected the fetus. No matter how stable the fetus was, it couldn't stand such torment again and again. However, from now on, Luo Jingying showed her fierce fighting ability in the backyard of Prince Rui's mansion. She knew that someone was scheming against her secretly. She wouldn't play tricks. She would do it openly. She would suddenly rush into your room and smash it. Or she would hold a hairpin and pretend to be weak. She would scratch your face when you were unprepared. Or she would suddenly run out and hit you hard. She would be knocked into the water. Even if she was stopped again and again, the same thing wouldn't happen again. However, Li Hongming also knew that he couldn't let her die. If he locked her up, she would immediately kill herself in various ways. Each time, she would be more ruthless than the last. Li Hongming's face darkened several times. He simply let it go and let Princess Lu deal with it. Luo Jingying behaved well in Princess Lu's place. She told Princess Lu that she would keep Li Hongming in the main courtyard and not let other women get close to him. Even if Princess Lu didn't have feelings for Prince Rui, it was still a great temptation. So she acquiesced. Luo Jingying didn't make trouble in daily life. However, once she knew that Prince Rui spent the night with a concubine, she would definitely make trouble for that concubine. With Princess Lu's help in secret, those concubines were all tortured miserably. When Li Hongming knew it, Luo Jingying loved him deeply. When he went to other women's places, she went crazy with jealousy. She would only stop when she couldn't touch the princess. In this aspect, men were always a little vain. There was no woman in the backyard that he cared about. In addition, Li Hongming's life outside was very bad. He made mistakes everywhere. He had been scolded by Lu Qingdi more than once. He was in a terrible fix. So, he just let it be. He really didn't enter the concubine's room for several months. As for Luo Jingying, because of her miscarriage, no one had taken good care of her and left her with a chronic illness. If she was calm, it might have affected her fertility. However, she did not stop for a moment. Her body deteriorated day by day, but she did not care. Of course, these were all the stories in the future. A few days after Jingwan's adulthood ceremony, it was Double Ninth Festival. The custom of climbing the mountain was indispensable. Li Hongyuan went to the Luo family's house to pick her up on that day unscrupulously. A few days ago, Madame Luo had been angered by him once. So, she let her go impatiently. Jingwan was taken to an uninhabited place by him and bullied again. Then, in a good mood, he took Jingwan to join the rest of the climbing team. They had a good time. The next day, Jingwan received 2 pieces of news before and after she went. First, Qin Zhengmin and Li Ruyu would get married in 10 days. Second, Sun Yilin was sent out. No matter which news it was, it came suddenly. Although Qin Zhengmin and Li Ruyu's marriage would happen sooner or later, there had been no news before. The 3 letters and 6 rights. They didn't hear about the first step. They were going to get married directly. After 10 days, there was no news of the betrothal gifts. Wasn't that surprising? There was also Sun Yilin. He was doing well in the internal court. Even if he was to be promoted because of the credit of the journey to the west, it seemed that there was no need for him to leave the capital and be sent out. Moreover, Ding General Manor was now in a period of internal strife. Many people had turned to him. If he just patted his butt and left, how could those people endure it? https://www.beacon.com/11/11807/6653315. HTML. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. please remember the domain name of this book, www.bikin.com. Biku Go mobile version reading website, ambikin.com. Chapter 227. Regardless of whether he was puzzled or enlightened, Sun Yilin had to leave the capital in 2 days. Before he left, he came to see Sun Ijia. Sun Ijia seemed to be in good spirits and seemed to be happy about leaving the capital to become an official. Sun Ijia didn't try to dissuade him. But did he have to leave in such a hurry? There were still 3 months before the new year. Couldn't he take up his post after the new year? Sun Yilin shook his head. He could feel that someone wanted him to leave. Although he did not know who it was, leaving the capital was not a bad thing for him. This world made him feel oppressed and painful. Although, because she was here, there was a hint of sweetness in the oppressive pain. The further he was away, the more lovesick he would feel. However, he needed to do something to distract himself. Before he met Jingwan, his life's ambition was to build his country and rule the world. Jingwan's appearance gave his life a different kind of color. It came so suddenly, but it also failed so quickly. He had no choice but to bury it and let it hurt in his heart again and again. He didn't know if someone else would dig it out in the future. He was muddle-headed for a period of time. Then he suddenly thought that if he couldn't get back up, didn't achieve anything, and disappeared in the crowd. One day when she talked about him, she would only shake her head and sigh in disappointment. Then she would completely forget about him without leaving a trace. He felt his heart clench tightly. He didn't want to be forgotten by her. Even if he couldn't be by her side, he wanted to let her know about him from time to time. He wanted to be good enough to stand in a high position. Sun Yilin wasn't a person who buried everything for love. But now, there was another reason for him to be more motivated. Sun Yilin didn't mention Jingwan, but Sun Ijia saw the unconcealable affection in his eyes. It made her heart soften. She wanted to ask Jingwan to come out and see him, but in the end, she restrained herself. She also didn't like men to be fickle. However, if it was her brother who was trapped by his infatuation and couldn't walk out, she would rather he be more affectionate because he couldn't get what he wanted. Tell me, all the men in Duke Dingwa's residence, from grandfather, father, and other brothers, were playboys. How could there be such an odd one? Sun Ijia accidentally muttered these words. Sun Yilin found it funny. If he was really a playboy, little sister, you probably wouldn't be close to fifth brother. Okay, I'm going back. Don't think about sending me off when I leave. I'll write you a letter after I settle down there. Sun Ijia sent Sun Yilin with tears in her eyes. The next day, Sun Yilin's residence. He would return to the capital for at least 3 years. The moment Jingwan heard the news, she didn't know what to feel. It was hard to describe. Then it was Chen Jingmin's wedding. The Luo family was very respectful, and basically all of them went. However, no one went to Xi and Fang. Moreover, he was helping Luo Jinghua get married. This time, he didn't ask the Luo brothers to help. To be precise, except for the necessary people, he was the only one in the wedding procession. The wedding procession looked very shabby. Their branch might not be rich, but it wasn't to this extent. They were clearly showing their displeasure. Jingwan was silent. She didn't know what to say, or perhaps she shouldn't say anything. Wedding banquet, wedding banquet. Because it was truly a happy occasion, the atmosphere would be lively. Most of the people who came to the Chun family knew what was going on, especially the Chun family members themselves. They all had a straight face, not a single smile on their faces. It was better not to attend such a wedding. The wedding procession came back much earlier than expected. Prince Cheng's mansion, no, it seemed to be Duke Cheng's mansion now, was much smaller than the original mansion, so there was probably no one to block the door. If the groom decided to quit, it would be really embarrassing. Although Duke Cheng's mansion had a strong background, the fact that the wedding had been delayed until today was very clear. For example, if Emperor Lu Cheng did not do anything, the Empress did not do anything, and Duke Ding's mansion did not do anything, it was just an empty shell with the name of Duke Cheng's mansion in name. When the bride came in, everyone found that she seemed to be swaying even when walking. The groom, Chun Jung-min, was expressionless. He held the end of the red silk and walked in front, completely ignoring the bride. Jingwon looked at Li Ruyu, who was covered with a veil, and frowned. She was so thin that her waist could be controlled with 2 hands. There was no news about her in the past few months. She guessed that she was living a bad life. She thought about the first time she saw her. She was also dressed in red, rude and arrogant, and her whip was fierce. Now forget it. Jingwon felt that she had no right to interfere in other people's business. Moreover, knowing that Chun Jung-min's thoughts were on her, she still went up to him to comfort him and ask him to live a good life. That was actually a very cruel thing to do. In the current situation, it was also very inappropriate behavior. The best thing to do was to stay far away and have nothing to do with each other. The next day, Jingwon heard that Chun Jung-min's wedding procession was similar to what she had expected. It was said that there were not many people from Duke Cheng's mansion. Even Ding General Manor only sent people to send gifts in a normal way. For the wedding banquet, there would be no one at all dressed up. In addition, his son-in-law was not respectful at all and did a perfunctory job of keeping up appearances. Duke Cheng was so angry that his veins were bulging. He really wanted to beat Chun Jung-min up. Unfortunately, Chun Jung-min was very straightforward and even wanted Duke Cheng to beat him up. He turned around and left. There was no need to pick him up. His wife was in tears and finally managed to persuade him to stay. When Chun Jung-min's temper became stubborn, it was also very troublesome. The days that followed were neither salty nor dull. Occasionally, she would attend the chrysanthemum banquets of various families. Speaking of which, the Grand Secretary of the Cabinet had the most chrysanthemums and the most complete variety. In the past, when the chrysanthemums bloomed, he would often take them out to make people envious. Only this year, so far, there was no movement. Speaking of which, the Wan family was in a precarious situation this year. Not to mention the flower appreciation banquet. There was no other birthday banquet. However, it was said that the Grand Secretary, who had always been stingy, had given several pots of famous chrysanthemums to the Minister of Personnel, Lord Luo. After asking around, it was said that it was to make amends. Many people believed it. Jingwon felt that there might be other reasons. However, since this treasure was in her hands, she would naturally take good care of it. When she brought the pot of Yaodai Jade Phoenix to the capital, there were only a few stems. Now, it had grown into a large clump. The flowers bloomed and looked exceptionally beautiful. Looking at these flowers and plants, her mood could not help but become cheerful. The weather was gradually getting colder. Every family had started to cut winter clothes early. The Luo family was no exception. Previously, when they were cutting autumn clothes, Jingwon and the others were not in the capital. According to Madame Wang's wishes, they had to cut 2 more sets of winter clothes. Jingwon refused. In reality, she had a lot of money. The clothes she usually wore were all made by the people around her. She had as many as she wanted. Basically, she had never worn any of the common clothes. Jingwon didn't feel that she was wearing them, but Nanny Gong didn't like them. Moreover, the people around her knew her measurements very well. Every piece of clothing they made was just right, and it was the most comfortable to wear. Thus, having more would be a waste. If she asked, she might as well not take any of them. However, there were many times when it was better not to refuse. Sunny Jia did not want a single piece. Her situation was special. Now that her belly was growing quickly, and she did not lack those things. It could be said that she was cutting new clothes every few days. Now that she was taking measurements in the office, even if it was made bigger, it might not fit her. Her situation was similar to Jingwon's, so she really did not need to waste time. The young and old ladies were excitedly choosing cloth at Madame Luo's place. As the eldest of the unmarried ladies, Jingwon casually picked 2 bolts and let her younger sisters choose. There were many colors. In the end, they would always find something they liked. If 2 ladies liked the same color, they would just cut a set of clothes for the same color. The remaining ladies in the Luo family were not particularly competitive. They would not be estranged over a piece of cloth. Jingwan received a message from Yun Yang. She went to Rouge Pavilion and brought back a large amount of dividends. Jingwan used to think that she was a rich woman. Now she received too many good things. She did not want to estimate their value. She also packed a lot of rouge and face powder from Rouge Pavilion. When she took it back, each branch would send gifts to her. After Jingwan moved to the capital city, the madams and ladies of the Luo family saved a lot of money on rouge and face powder. The things they used were still the best. In the blink of an eye, it was the day before Zhou Yingshuang's wedding. Yuan Xiaoqiao asked Jingwan to add to her dowry. She asked Jingwan to bring son Yijia's dowry to the wedding. Before they left home, Wangzhu Yuyao came to them again. Since the first time she came to the Luo family, Wangzhu Yuyao came here every few days. Today, she was particularly confident that she would add to Miss Zhou's dowry on behalf of Princess Yu. Jingwan knew that she did this for her sake. It must be said that Great Elder Princess was quite competent as Lin Mingya's foster mother, because most of her relatives and friends were adding to her dowry on this day. When Jingwan and others came, many people were there. When they entered the room, everyone hurriedly stood up to greet them, especially Yuyao. As the Wangzhu, she should accept the greetings. Yuyao might be a little impulsive in daily life, but when she was serious, she was very serious. She even had a little bit of Great Elder Princess's shadow. In a short time, she could be very intimidating. With regards to Yuyao's arrival, especially when she stated her intentions, not to mention the relatives and friends of the Zhou family, even the people of the Zhou family were very surprised. She directly alarmed the old madam of the Zhou family. This was the honor that came with status. The gifts sent by Great Elder Princess were certainly not shabby. They were opened on the spot, which made all the madams and ladies in the room envious. Many people were also curious about the gifts sent by Jingwan, but Zhou Yingshuang didn't open them. She knew that Jingwan was never a stingy person. Compared with Great Elder Princess's gifts, her gifts were probably even better. If others saw them, it would be a slap in Great Elder Princess's face. At that time, it would be really embarrassing. Of course, there were also smart people who thought of this. They didn't join in the fun, and even stood on Zhou Yingshuang's side to say something. The girl who spoke didn't realize it for a moment and was naturally unhappy. The faces of Zhou Yingshuang's mother and grandmother darkened one after another. Seeing that the atmosphere was not right, someone with a glib tongue helped to change the topic. Jingwan didn't say anything, because the gifts she prepared were more and more exquisite regardless of the value. Because there were quite a lot of people coming and going, Jingwan and others didn't stay long and said that they would come tomorrow morning. When almost all the people left, Mrs. Zhou walked into her daughter's room. Seeing Zhou Yingshuang touching a set of hair accessories, Mrs. Zhou's eyes flashed with surprise. Even the gifts she prepared for her daughter were not as good as this one. She walked forward and asked, "Is this a gift for Miss Luo?" Zhou Yingshuang looked up at her mother and nodded. Mrs. Zhou stroked her head and said, "Keep it well. Mother doesn't need to worry that you will suffer in the future. With such a handkerchief to support you, you are stronger than our Zhou family. This is also my son's fortune." Zhou Yingshuang nodded. She felt the same way. When she first became friends with Jingwan, it was only because their personalities were more compatible. Coupled with her relationship with Yuan Xiaoqiao, they got closer and closer. Who knew how many people envied her today? Zhou Yingshuang's heart was filled with sweetness. Jingwan came over early in the morning, as she said. However, Mrs. Quanfu was already wringing noodles for Zhou Yingshuang. She wrung out all the hair on her face. TSK, it was painful just looking at it. Jingwan touched her face. There was almost no hair on her face. When the time came, she shouldn't have to suffer. It was best to let Mrs. Quanfu do the honors. She wrung the noodles and carefully combed her hair. When it was time to put on makeup, Zhou Yingshuang begged Jingwan to help her. Although it was against the rules, Mrs. Quanfu didn't mind. Jingwan also readily agreed. She carefully put on makeup for her, covering up some small flaws. She also put on a light layer of blush according to her face shape. Her face was still the same face, but it looked more beautiful. Many people were amazed. No wonder the bride wanted Luo San Miss to help her with her makeup. If they were in her shoes, they would definitely do the same. When the groom lifts the veil, I don't know how happy he will be. Zhou Yingshuang blushed, adding a touch of color to her face. By the time everything was done, most of the people had left. Only Jingwan and a few others stayed behind to chat with her. Not to mention other things, just by listening to the movements outside, it was clear that this wedding was far from the one a few days ago. The groom is here. Digression a bit stuck, but there shouldn't be many chapters until Jingwan gets married. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653319. HTML. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com, Bikugo mobile reading website, ambicken.com. Chapter 228. The groom is here. Hearing this, Zhou Yingshuang's body tensed up and she unconsciously clenched her fists. Jingwan comfortingly patted her hand and smiled. The one who needs to be nervous now is the one outside, not you. Zhou Yingshuang glared at her. When you get married, I think Jin Qinhuang won't be nervous. After all, there's no door that he can't open. You should think carefully about who will guard the door for you. That door will open as soon as he barges in. Aren't you embarrassed? What's there for me to be embarrassed about? I'm not the one guarding the door. Didn't they say that a married girl is like spilled water? The one who is being talked about is definitely not me. Jingwan smilingly said. Your skin is this thick. Does your family know? Ah, such a question with a sense of past life. It's a pity that this girl didn't wear it. They know my third sister-in-law often says that. Jingwan nodded seriously. You really don't have any shame. Zhou Yingshuang pointed at her, her finger trembling. She was angry. What is that? Can it be eaten? Jingwan said and suddenly opened her mouth, pretending to bite her finger. Zhou Yingshuang hurriedly retracted her hand and looked at Jingwan speechlessly. She was clearly dignified and elegant in front of others, but in private, she was like a rogue. Yuan Xiaoqiao laughed at the side. Wan, don't tease Yingshuang. In any case, she is a bride today. Zhou Yingshuang glared at Yuan Xiaoqiao again. You guys can bully me all you want. When you get married, I'd like to see if you're not nervous at all. When the time comes to offend me, I'll definitely pay you back tenfold. Jingwan stuck out her chest and nodded. And I'll wait. Jingwan thought to herself that most girls would be nervous when they got married because they were going to a strange place and facing strange people. That was why they couldn't help but feel uneasy. The man she was going to marry was an overbearing, unreasonable, and unruly hooligan. They had already crossed the line and were familiar with each other. It would be strange if she was still nervous. Of course, there was another situation that might make her nervous, and that was when she was deeply in love. Jingwan obviously did not belong to this category. However, after being disturbed by Jingwan, Zhou Yingshuang wasn't as nervous anymore. In fact, it wasn't that they hadn't thought of currying favor with Jingwan, but they had all failed. Jingwan was generous and decent to them. She seemed easy to get close to, but in fact, that wasn't the case. If you continued to approach her because you were unwilling to give up, she would directly turn cold. Her good temper had its limits. Even if you wanted to get close to her through Zhou Yingshuang and the others, it wouldn't have any effect. If you didn't know when to back off, you would even offend her. Moreover, the son of the Imperial College's chancellor's family was talented, scholarly, and good-looking. He was also this year's Jinsher. Furthermore, he was ranked in the top 50 in the final court examination and entered the Hanlin Academy. He should be considered a potential stock. When she learned that Zhou Yingshuang was about to get married, after some hesitation, Jingwan asked Jin Qinhuang for help to investigate that person's background. He only had one Tong Fong maidservant. He didn't belong to the type that grew up together and had a deep friendship. He was purely an ordinary Tongfang. He definitely didn't have any concubines or illegitimate children. At the same time, he also didn't have any bad habits. However, perhaps because his father was usually very strict, his temperament seemed to be a little soft. These were flaws in Jingwan's eyes, but at present, he was a good candidate for a husband. Jingwan still remembered when Jin Qinhuang told her about this. His evaluation of this person was that being a deputy wasn't bad, but letting him be in charge of one side was a bit forced. According to Li Hongyuan's meaning, if Jingwan wanted, he could be promoted. If one day she didn't find him pleasing to the eye, she could easily crush him with one foot. Jingwan was speechless that a certain person was always so violent. However, she also knew that Jin Qinhuang wasn't joking around with these words. That meant that Jingwan, to a certain extent, actually held the power to kill Zhou Yingshuang's husband. In fact, this bridal escort was a test. Even if he really couldn't pass, he wouldn't really not be allowed to pick up the bride. The one outside, using literature to break through the door, really wasn't a difficult matter. After all, in the Zhou family, there was no one more knowledgeable than him. Also, several of these make-up urging poems were handed in. Sure enough, the Zhou family couldn't withstand it. Not long after, the bridegroom brought people to break into the courtyard. At this time, it was naturally time for the womenfolk to step out. However, most of the womenfolk just stretched out their hands and asked for red packets. The servant girls truthfully conveyed the situation outside. Yuan Xiaoqiao listened with interest and couldn't sit still. She tilted her head and looked outside. Jingwan found it funny. If you want to watch the show, then go out. Otherwise, you'll have to personally make things difficult for the bridegroom. Hearing this, Yuan Xiaoqiao really stood up. Yingshuang, I'll help you check. Zhou Yingshuang wanted to stop her, but Yuan Xiaoqiao walked quickly, and she couldn't get down from the ground now. Yuan Xiaoqiao righteously separated the womenfolk and stood in front of the bridegroom. Lu Gongzi, did you bring your zither? Luo Jinghua played the song, a male phoenix seeking a female phoenix to marry Sun Ijia to welcome her. This had almost become a necessary part of the wedding ceremony for the men in the capital. When no one mentioned it, perhaps some people would pretend to be deaf and mute. Very few people would take the initiative to play it. After all, it required courage to play decadent music and recite sentimental lyrics in public. But now that the bridegroom had mentioned it, he couldn't pretend not to understand. If the bridegroom really pointed it out, the bridegroom would have some ideas. I did. Lu Gongzi nodded his head and replied. Yuan Xiaoqiao nodded. Then I'll wait and have my fill. But Lu Gongzi, why do you have to remind me? Why can't you take the initiative? She seemed to be a little disappointed as she shook her head. Lu Gongzi was able to handle the crowd outside with ease, but when he faced Yuan Xiaoqiao, he was a little embarrassed. To put it bluntly, he wasn't good at dealing with girls, especially someone like Yuan Xiaoqiao, who was outspoken. Everyone who helped him to welcome the bridegroom showed subtle sympathy for him. At the same time, those who weren't married wondered if they would receive the same treatment in the future. Those who were married felt lucky and regretful. The bridegroom wanted to play the guqin, so the guqin table was naturally prepared very quickly. Zhou Yingshuang was worried that her husband would be embarrassed by Yuan Xiaoqiao when she heard the sound of the guqin. When she heard him recite the lyrics, her face flushed red. She lowered her head and played with her fingers. Jingwan gave a thumbs up to Yuan Xiaoqiao, who walked in with a smile. Yuan Xiaoqiao's smile became more obvious. Zhou Yingshuang listened quietly, but the heat on her face didn't disappear for a long time. Madame Chuanfu came in with the matron of honor. She covered her head with the veil and prepared to go out. Yingshuang will be blessed in the future. Zhou Yingshuang paid her respects to her parents and was sent to the bridal sedan by her brothers, Jingwan and Yuan Xiaoqiao, as sisters who were sending her off, went with her. It was the first time she went to the residence of the directorate's chancellor. The chancellor was an honest official. This was confirmed by Jin Qinhuang's mouth. It wasn't a pretense, But because one of his brothers moved out of the household register and became a merchant, he didn't lack money. Entering the Liu family's door, it could be seen that even if they didn't lack money, the Liu family was not extravagant. Jingwan had a general understanding of the Liu family. In fact, she knew it very clearly from Jin Qinhuang, but she wanted to verify it with her own eyes to be more assured. Then Jingwan patted her own head. She was simply crazy. Even if she wasn't satisfied, could she dismantle this marriage? She threw the idea of wanting to explore to one side. It wouldn't be good if people saw it. Coming out of the bridal chamber to take the banquet, she probably wouldn't see Zhou Yingshuang for a while. Jingwan had just returned home and learned that the third branches Huan Yinyang had flared up. Jingwan thought for a moment. It seemed that the months were still a bit insufficient. However, she didn't go to understand this matter. Besides, whether the months were enough or not, it had nothing to do with her. If she was born and raised, it would just be one more mouth in the Luo family. It wouldn't be that they couldn't afford to raise her. If she wasn't born or died young, it could only be heaven's will. Jingwan didn't know that Huan Yinyang was ordered by Lu Shi to serve Luo Rongping. Imagine a person who was suddenly paralyzed in bed, such a big drop. It must be a variety of negative emotions. Such a person needed to be served like this when eating, drinking, and going to the toilet. Especially on a hot day, she had to wipe her body several times a day. How could a pregnant woman bear this kind of tiredness? Moreover, once Luo Rongping went crazy, she might be hurt. In order to keep the child, Huan Yinyang could be said to be exhausting herself. She always coaxed Luo Rongping tenderly and sweetly. When other people were pregnant, they would more or less gain weight. She not only didn't gain weight, she was also terribly thin. Even if she had a belly, it was estimated that she didn't have her original weight. If Jingwan were to see her now, she would definitely be shocked. And it was a miracle that her child could stay in her belly until now. Huan Yinyang had a difficult birth. She was thin because she was physically and mentally exhausted, but she was not treated harshly in terms of food. In fact, Lu Shi also specially asked people to prepare a lot of supplements for her. It could be seen that she was really sinister. Huan Yinyang also knew clearly, but she couldn't refuse. She also knew that it was impossible to resolve the matter between her and Lu Shi. Huan Yinyang stayed up for a day and a night, but she couldn't give birth to the child. In the end, 2 lives were lost. No matter how tough Huan Yinyang was, or how scheming she was defeated by Lu Shi. The only difference between her and Lu Shi was their status. Her honor and disgrace depended on Luo Rongping, but Lu Shi was not. In the backyard of a noble house, the death of a lowly concubine couldn't make a splash at all. Perhaps she knew too much. After hearing this, Jingwan just said, "Why bother?" The weather was already cold. There was nothing to do this winter, so they could basically prepare for the winter. At this time, Jingwan was once again bullied by a local tyrant. Jin Qinhuang sent a lot of leather, and they were all very expensive leather. If it was in the previous life, it would definitely be sold at a sky-high price. After all, it couldn't be found in the market at all. White fox leather, fire fox leather, and even black fox leather, not to mention other mink leather, silver mouse leather, and so on. Jingwan finally found tiger leather, leopard leather, and said that it was for Jingwan to use as a mattress. Each kind of leather was smooth and soft, the color was pure, and the color was single. Basically, there was no trace of other colors. It felt quite good to the touch. Jingwan thought, fortunately, there was no animal protection law now, otherwise Jin Qinhuang would https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653321. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. Exempt from registration. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com, Bikuga mobile reading website, ambicken.com. Chapter 229. Towards Jin Qinhuang's behavior of giving a lot of good things at every turn, the Luo family was also accustomed to it. There were many people who were envious, but not many who were jealous. Jingwan would always divide a part of the things, and this time was the same. In fact, Li Hongyuan had already made preparations. He had reserved the part for the Luo family in advance, and the best ones were for Jingwan. On one hand, he knew that Jingwan would not monopolize it, and on the other hand, he did not want Jingwan to draw too much hatred in the Luo family. After all, Jingwan was different from him. She cared about her family, and if there were good things, she would share it with them. The things reserved for the Luo family, in Li Hongyuan's eyes, were only defective goods. Even so, the majority of the Luo family loved them so much that they could not part with them. These were good things that they could not ask for in the past. Thinking about the things in Jingwan's hands. Forget it. People should be content with what they have. Being too greedy would not have a good end. Jingwan originally wanted to give old Madame Luo's black fox fur to use. After all, the black fox fur that Li Hongyuan got was limited, and the fox fur was originally thick, so it was not suitable to make a whole set of clothes. However, old Madame Luo refused. The things that Jin Qinhuang prepared for his fiancée, how could an old woman like her take them all? The things that were given to her were already very good. Moreover, the best things, she naturally wanted to use them on Jingwan. After getting these things, the one who was the most impolite was probably Gong Mama. She finished dividing these hides into cloaks, overcoats, everything that one could think of, not to mention using them as accessories on clothes. Jingwan wanted to say, "Mama, use up all the things that don't need lungs at once." She was still growing, and after 1 or 2 years, it would be too short. These things would not be the same as ordinary clothes, no longer fitting, or after this season. She would not want them anymore. That was simply a waste of God's gifts, and she would be struck by lightning. Okay? Young lady, don't worry. How could Jin Qinhuang be short of something like this? In the future, they could just buy a new one. Besides, even if it was a little short, they could just piece it back together in the future. It wouldn't be wasted at will. All right, Jingwan shut her mouth. There was no point in saying more. The people around her were absolutely excellent at making clothes. Even if it was piecing, Jingwan felt that she couldn't find any traces at all. They were all capable people. However, after receiving so many good things, Jingwan felt that she should give something in return. But no matter how she thought about it, the other party didn't have anything good. In terms of these external objects, there was probably nothing that she had that he didn't have. Or, rather, he should personally do something to express his sincerity. As the saying goes, the gift is light, but the sentiment is more important. As a useless actress, it was better not to make a fool of herself. Jingwan guessed that if she gave him something, he would probably use it. Thinking about that person, which one of his clothes was not the best of the best? In other words, it was the best of the best. If low-end things suddenly appeared on his body, it was simply inappropriate. Just thinking about it would ruin his image. Then what could she give him? It seemed that other than herself. Stop. Jingwan covered her face. After meeting that bastard, she was becoming more and more filthy. If she couldn't think of anything, then she would just leave it hanging. However, recently, Jingwan felt that the atmosphere in the capital was somewhat not right. Moreover, she hadn't seen grandfather for a few days. Not to mention in the morning, he went out too early. She also couldn't see him at night, which was a bit unusual. Grandmother didn't mention it, and Jingwan also didn't ask. It was just those trivial matters in the imperial court. You cheat me, I harm you, and set each other up. After a few days, Jingwan hugged a hand warmer. The temperature in the capital was much lower than Qianfu. Jingwan felt that she had become delicate. Unless it was necessary, she just stayed in her room and didn't want to go out. Because of the floor tiles, the room was quite comfortable. Madame Luo had reduced the number of times she paid her respects, once every 3 days. However, Jingwan still went every day, but later in the morning and earlier in the evening. Perhaps it had become a habit, or perhaps it was the aftereffect of Madame Luo's near-death experience a few years ago. Jingwan seemed to feel a little uneasy if she didn't see her every day. On this day, when Jingwan accompanied Madame Luo for dinner, she learned that many courtiers were staying overnight in the palace, including grandfather. Jingwan's heart skipped a beat. Why did it feel like they were imprisoning courtiers and forcing a rebellion? Jingwan put down her chopsticks and wiped her mouth. "Grandmother, what happened?" "Prince Kong is back." Jingwan just remembered that there was no such person during the summer vacation. Later, it was said that he asked for disaster relief. Why did he only come back now? Thinking about it, it seemed to be more than 4 months. Could it be that the recent events had something to do with him? A few days ago, he was assassinated on the way back and disappeared under the protection of the guards. His Majesty sent people to look for him, but they couldn't find him. Until today, he came back alone, dressed in ragged clothes, like a beggar, with injuries. He was stopped from entering the city. If he didn't happen to meet someone close to him, when he was found by someone who didn't want him to live, I'm afraid. Jingwan understood Madame Luo's unfinished words. Even in the capital, there were not many people who knew the royal family. Moreover, most people didn't know that Prince Kong was assassinated and disappeared. A beggar dared to pretend to be a royal family member, and a prince at that. If it was made public, for example, the guards at the city gate had been bribed by others, and he might be killed directly. Prince Kong was smart for once. When he was stopped, he didn't shout loudly. Instead, he swallowed his anger and retreated. It didn't seem to be in line with his temperament. Prince Kong was impulsive, irritable, and arrogant. He dared to stop a small guard at the city gate, but he didn't kick him directly. Probably someone said something to him before. Madame Luo nodded. It's very likely. Prince Kang's disaster relief didn't go well. He encountered several riots, and there was one time when he was patrolling the dam. There was a sudden flood, and he fell into the water, almost losing his life. This time, it happened once or twice by chance. If it happened too many times, then it's because he brought enough guards with him, and the protection was tight. Once or twice was by chance, but if it happened too many times, it was probably inevitable that people would think that it was a conspiracy. After Prince Kong simply freshened up, he directly entered the palace. In front of the Holy Emperor, he was in the middle of crying when he fainted. The entire imperial hospital was alarmed. It was said that Prince Kong was seriously injured. It's not easy for him to hold on for so long. Before, it was probably because his spirit was tense, but when he suddenly relaxed, he couldn't hold on anymore. It was as if his life was hanging by a thread. The Holy Emperor was furious. Grandfather and the others aren't doctors. What's the use of the Holy Emperor keeping them? Who knows? Madame Luo absent-mindedly answered. She didn't care whether Prince Kong was dead or alive. Jingwan laughed. I'm afraid that Prince Rui and the Gong Prince will be anxious. Madame Luo glanced at her. How the others were, Madame Luo didn't have any thoughts. Most likely, Prince Jean had a hand in it. He was cold-blooded and ruthless to everyone. His remaining humanity and tenderness seemed to be left for Wan Wan. If it could continue like this, it would be Wan Wan's luck. Then, she would probably be able to rest in peace. Jingwan subconsciously touched her face. What is grandmother looking at? Nothing. The matters of the court have nothing to do with us. It's the 12th lunar month, less than a month away from the new year. And I hope we can have a peaceful year. It doesn't matter. Even if something bad happened to Prince Kong, it's just like that. It's not like, indeed, when a prince died, it wasn't up to other people to mourn for him. But Wan Wan, it's your first time spending winter in the north. Be careful, don't catch a cold. This was what Madame Luo was most worried about. My health has always been very good. Grandmother doesn't need to worry about me. But grandmother, you haven't been in the capital for many years. You must be careful. Since the beginning of winter, she had been watching her grandmother almost every day, fearing that she would fall ill. The two of them regarded each other as very important. When Jingwan returned, her feet paused. She took a small detour and went to Falling Plum House. third young lady has come. The gatekeeper of Falling Plum House hurriedly took out a hanging lamp to lead the way. Knowing that Jingwan had come, Luo Rongyan and Zhangshi hurriedly got up and came out. They couldn't be blamed. After their relationship with Jingwan worsened, they wanted to make up for it, but didn't know where to start. Other than paying respects, Jingwan didn't take the initiative to step into Falling Plum House. Clearly, Falling Plum House and Begonia House were only separated by a wall, and a small door was opened. "Father, mother," Jingwan bent her knees. "It's cold outside. Why did you come out?" Zhangshi's eyes reddened and she was about to cry. But when she remembered that her daughter disliked this, she hurriedly wiped the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief. "You also know that it's cold. Quickly go inside." "No, it's not good to be cold and hot. I just want to cut a few plum blossoms to make a vase." Although disappointed, Luo Rongyan immediately said, "Father will cut it for you." Jingwan didn't refuse and smiled. "Thank you, Father." Luo Rongyan waved his hand. "I'm your father. You don't have to be so polite." The maidservant was even more clever. She immediately fetched a pair of scissors. No one would say that it was dark now to cut flowers. Probably no one knew better than Luo Rongyan which part of Falling Plum House's plum blossoms were the best. Luo Rongyan was very protective of the plum blossoms in this courtyard. Usually, even he was reluctant to cut them down to make a vase. But now, he didn't hold back at all. He took the scissors and cut them with all his might. He wasn't worried that he would cut a piece of the plum blossoms bald. Jingwan was speechless. Even if you cut flowers, you shouldn't cut them like this. After cutting them, you should take into account their beauty. Moreover, the basket was almost full. It was just making a vase. There was really no need to cut so many flowers. "Father, that's enough." Luo Rongyan paused and stopped. He handed the scissors to the maidservant and personally carried the basket over. "Is it enough?" "It seems a little too little." "It's enough." Jingwan took the basket and handed it to the maidservant. "Father, mother, quickly go inside. It's almost the new year. Don't catch a cold. Daughter will go back first." Luo Rongyan nodded. "If the plum blossoms fail to bloom, I'll have someone cut them." "Okay, quickly go inside. Walk slowly at night. Don't fall." Madame Zhang couldn't help but remind them. As if she was still worried, she asked 2 more people to add 2 more lanterns for Jingwan. Jingwan slowly returned to the elegant Begonia residence. In the end, Prince Kong was rescued. Lu Qingdi's anger also subsided a little. However, this matter obviously wouldn't be settled so easily. He would definitely investigate to the end. But everyone was well aware that it wouldn't be easy to investigate. On the 23rd day of the 12th lunar month, Lu Qingdi sealed the imperial brush. From top to bottom, the collective began to magnify the holiday. https://www.beacon.com/11/11807/6653323. HTML. Click here to report an error. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.beacon.com. Beacon. Com Mobile Edition. Chapter 230. On the 23rd, His Majesty sealed the pen. At the same time, it also meant that the new year officially began. The most important thing on this day was naturally the sacrifice to the stove. However, this had nothing to do with Jingwan. Wasn't that the so-called women don't sacrifice to the stove? Although Jingwan had never sacrificed to the stove before, she had seen it before. It was similar to most sacrifices, so she didn't join in the fun. Jingwan was a little scared when she saw Sun Yijia's big belly. Now, Jingwan didn't dare to get close to her, as if she was afraid that something would happen if she wasn't careful. This was already the 9th month. It wasn't long before the little guy was born. All the preparations to welcome the little guy had been completed a month ago. Sun Ijia's condition was quite good. She didn't have the so-called prenatal depression. Every time she saw Jingwan's cautious look, she felt very happy. You're already like this when you're in my belly. What will you do when you're pregnant in the future? Jingwan paused. That's right. Although she already had the resolve to get married and have children, that resolve only existed in her heart. Sun Ijia, her sister-in-law, was the closest pregnant woman she had the most contact with. Other than her, she would at most glance at her from afar. But Sun Ijia, from the moment she found out that she was pregnant until now, she had seen her almost every day. She had seen the whole process with her eyes. That feeling was completely different. Speaking of which, she was going to get married next year. If she hit the jackpot on the first try like Sun Ijia, wouldn't that mean, thinking of that scene, Jingwan was a little depressed. She would only be 15 years old when the new year started. 15 years old. Her small body hadn't grown. Was it really okay to have children? Not to mention waiting until she was 18 years old, at least until she was 16 years old. It would be even better if she could delay it until she was 20 years old. However, thinking about it, she knew that it was impossible. She didn't know if she could negotiate with a certain someone. How long would it take? Jingwan felt that her sister-in-law wasn't depressed. She was about to be. Depression was a thing that didn't have a shadow. After being depressed for a while, she forgot about it. From the servants to the young masters, everyone was very busy. It was also full of laughter. The house was dusted 24/7. Even though it was clean every day, it still had to be clean today. Jingwan looked at the people around her going in and out. She sat there in a daze. After that, there was still the matter of receiving the Jade Emperor, washing blessings, and so on. Pasting the couplets was naturally a very important matter. Putting up couplets was a must. Every door and every object had to be pasted. There were many scholars in the family, so it wasn't a big deal. He even wrote some rewards for the servants. Therefore, Emperor Luchengdi would naturally bestow the word fu, which was also a great sign of being favored. Therefore, anyone who had the chance would ask for a few. Of course, it was impossible for the officials, only the princes, concubines, and relatives. Other than the fu character, there was also the door god. However, Jingwan still felt that it was a little too little. She had people put up red lanterns, all of which were big and round in shape. They were either written with auspicious characters or pasted with clippings. Then she tied a big blessing knot and hung it everywhere, adding to the festive atmosphere. In the blink of an eye, it was New Year's Eve. On this day, every family had a family sacrifice. The offerings prepared were very rich. The busiest time in the kitchen was when the children started to play and set off firecrackers. Some of the main dishes were prepared a few days ago, so that they could make a sumptuous New Year's Eve dinner on New Year's Eve. The sound of firecrackers came from the streets and alleys, mixed with the chatter and laughter everywhere. It was very pleasant to the ears. During the New Year's Eve dinner, although the male and female seats were still separated, they were not separated. The table was full of dishes. All of them had auspicious symbols. Even though Jingwan had seen it for many years and many times, she still felt very emotional. For the food that they ate, other than the cold dishes, the other main dishes were still hot. Then, today, except for the eldest son of the eldest son, who was too young to drink, the others could drink no matter how young they were. At this time, there was no need to be particular about not talking while eating. Even if the children ate and played around at the table, they were not restrained. This New Year's Eve dinner lasted for 4 hours. Of course, in the end, basically no one touched their chopsticks. Those hot dishes were only touched at the beginning. The table was finally removed. The whole family gathered in the hall. Even the servants gathered outside, their faces full of joy. Starting from the 2 elders, they gave out red packets. Everyone of their younger generation had a share. Receiving a red packet, even if it was only a copper coin, was still something to be happy about. Kneeling, saying auspicious words, asking for red packets, round after round, the younger the generation, the more red packets they received. In this way, the eldest son of the eldest son of the eldest son of the eldest son became the biggest winner. Even the very young uncles and aunts also wanted to give him red packets. Seeing this, the whole family was overjoyed. It had been a few years since it had been so lively, and Madame Luo's smile had never disappeared. After she was done here, Wang Shi arranged to give out red packets to the servants according to their grades, batch by batch, and then went to replace the other people on duty. In previous years, the red packets were 2 months' worth of salary, but this year it was 4 months' worth. Wang Shi also directly told them that this was old Madame Luo's first year in the capital, so the extra 2 months' worth of salary were awarded by old Madame Luo. These people had served people all their lives for this. Naturally, they were very grateful to Madame Luo. They kept saying nice things like longevity and longevity. Madame Luo was less moved, but she couldn't help but be happy for Luo Shangshu. Like Jingwan, he cared about Madame Luo's health very much. Naturally, he felt very comfortable listening to these kind words. When the clock struck midnight, the bell on the tower rang, and the sound of firecrackers shook the sky above the capital. At this time of the 3 yuan of the year, the month, and the time, a blazing fire was set up in the courtyard to show that it was prosperous and prosperous. Around the blazing fire, the big and small children set off firecrackers again. They were lively and lively. The house was brightly lit, and there were bright sparks in front of the courtyard. Outside the house, there were loud noises. This was the most lively time to bid farewell to the old and welcome the new. However, after the celebration, the little fellows began to feel sleepy. It was already good that they were able to hold on until now. The next day, the families of officials of the 5th rank and above entered the palace to pay a New Year's visit. The men were all dressed in court robes, and the madams of the higher ranks were naturally dressed up. They looked very stylish. In comparison, the young ladies and wives could dress up beautifully. They were gorgeously dressed, adding a lot of warm colors in the bitter cold. It was pleasing to the eye. A long line of carriages was waiting to enter the palace. Luo Shangshu's official position was high enough, under the premise that only one member of the imperial family could enter. The Luo family's carriage naturally didn't have to wait too long. After checking their identities, Jingwan and the others were respectfully allowed to enter. The womenfolk had to pay New Year's greetings to the Empress and the others. Since it wasn't time yet, they could only wait outside. This wasn't an easy task. If they waited for too long, their hands and feet would become numb. Those who were older definitely couldn't bear it. However, generally speaking, those who were older would either have a husband or a son who was an important official. Naturally, they would receive preferential treatment. They would be directly welcomed into a warm room, warmed by a stove, and served with good tea and water. Compared to those who had to stand and wait outside, it was like heaven and earth. It was no wonder that many people desperately wanted to climb to a higher position. Not for anything else, but just this treatment was worth fighting for. Even if there weren't any ladies who were particularly close to her in the warm room, Jingwan basically knew them. As long as they didn't try to dig a hole in 2 out of 3 sentences, Jingwan was still willing to chat with them. Most of the princesses had to flatter Jingwan. Not to mention, those Junju's fathers didn't have any real power. The ladies of the other important officials' families generally didn't have any conflicts with Jingwan. In addition, today was the first day of the new year, so there wouldn't be any blind people looking for trouble. A woman in palace attire walked to Jingwan's side. Luo, 3rd young lady. Gue Fein Yang Yang invites you. Jingwan nodded and bid farewell to the person beside her. Then, she left the warm room with the woman in palace attire. At this time, it was common for the palaces to summon those who were closer to them in advance. Some imperial concubines might only take this opportunity to see their maternal family throughout the year. Although the servants of each family couldn't enter the warm room, they still waited outside. This time, it was still Mama Gong who followed Jingwan into the palace. Now, no matter where she went, she naturally had to follow. The imperial palace had always been a place where evil was hidden. There was nothing wrong with being careful. However, the palace maid who led the way was very magnanimous. It seemed that there shouldn't be a problem. However, when Jingwan turned around the corridor of the palace hall and saw a certain person who seemed to be bored to death playing with flowers outside the corridor of another palace hall, should this be called a problem or not? The palace maid looked straight ahead and bowed to Li Hongyuan before leaving. She didn't call out to Jingwan at all. Her intention was obvious. After Mama Gong saw Li Hongyuan, she didn't follow and stood a little further away. Seeing the incomparably handsome man who had restrained his hostility and appeared to be detached from the world, Jingwan felt that it was more and more difficult for her to control this beauty. TSK, walking hormones, there was really no way around it. Jingwan stood up before walking to Li Hongyuan's side. Just as she was about to bow, Li Hongyuan was one step ahead and held her hand. Feeling that Jingwan's hand was slightly cold, he lightly frowned. "Why didn't you bring a hand warmer?" Jingwan was speechless. Dear Jin Qinhuang, this was the imperial palace, not her home. She wasn't a member of the imperial family. Holding a hand warmer, was it to show off your uniqueness and draw hatred? It's enough for you to draw hatred. Don't drag others down. Li Hongyuan took off his cloak and draped it over Jingwan's body. Jingwan could clearly feel the warmth coming from the cloak. Glancing at it, there was an obvious layer of velvet inside. It was warm and light when draped over her body. Mu, and immediately handed over a hand warmer. Li Hongyuan waited for her to settle down before opening his mouth. The wedding date is set on the 3rd of March. The first day of March? https://www.bicken.com/11/118007/6653328. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. Exempt from registration. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Com Mobile Edition Reading Website, Bicken.com. That you're tuning in to the Echo Reads YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.